Chapter 1390. Tang Zheng remained silent. His gaze shifted unpredictably as he locked onto the people in mid-air. One of them was actually an old acquaintance of Wuxia. Wuxia was the leader of the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor, but at this moment, he no longer had that kind of temperament. Instead, he was like a stray dog that was pincered in front and behind, battered and exhausted. Chapter 1391. The shooting sun arrow hovered in the air, flashing with golden light, as if it could shoot at someone again at any time. The arrow just now was fast, ruthless, and accurate, directly destroying a treasure sword. It was very intimidating. Among the martial artists, no one had seen the shooting sun arrow, but they understood that it was a divine weapon. "Who is it? Who dares to ruin our good thing?" The martial artist roared, furious. Wuxia bit his lips, his face changing, sometimes white, sometimes red. He knew that the shooting sun arrow had appeared, so its master must be nearby. However, didn't he hear that Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian were both dead? Who had gotten the shooting sun arrows? Although Wuxia went to the 100,000 mountains, he still heard the news of Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian's death on the way. At that time, he felt particularly relieved. Tang Zheng stopped him time and time again. Li Xiaotian bent her bow and shot arrows, shooting down all the souls of the golden crow, completely cutting off his thoughts. Wuxia didn't have the slightest good impression of these two people, and he wanted to grind their bones and scatter their ashes. Hearing the news of their deaths, Wuxia was happy and disappointed. It was a pity that he didn't have the chance to kill them personally. All eyes turned to the ground. The shooting sun arrows were shot from the ground, so the attacker was naturally on the ground. Tang Zheng had already saved Li Xiaotian, so he was naturally not afraid of exposing the news that he was not dead. He pulled Li Xiaotian and flew up lightly. Swish! All eyes were focused on the two of them. The martial artist didn't know them and scolded in a stern voice. "Who are you? How dare you ruin our good thing? Don't you want to live?" Tang Zheng sneered and didn't comment. Seeing this, the martial artist felt that his dignity was seriously challenged, and he was even more furious. Like a volcanic eruption, he shouted, "You two are cultivators, not afraid of death. How dare you show up in front of us?" Martial artists were not strangers to cultivators and knew a little about cultivators. Therefore, when they saw the two of them fly up into the air, they naturally thought of them as part of the cultivators' camp. Tang Zheng didn't pay any attention to the martial artist. Instead, he looked at Wuxia. Obviously, Wuxia's eyes were more unique. Ever since Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian appeared, his eyes were wide open, as if he had seen a ghost. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that the two of them were still alive. Furthermore, they were still alive and well. Now that they had met under such circumstances, his prestige would definitely be swept to the ground. After all, that wretched appearance just now was really too damaging to his prestige. "You guys actually didn't die." Wuxia extended a trembling finger and pointed at the two of them from afar as she said in shock. Tang Zheng glanced at him and said, "Wuxia, you haven't died yet, so how could I die so quickly?" "Tang Zheng, didn't the rumors say that you were all dead?" Wuxia asked in disbelief. "You also know that it's just a rumor. After all, rumors are the most untrustworthy in this world." Tang Zheng said with a smile that was not a smile. Untrustworthy, untrustworthy. These three words echoed in Wuxia's mind. Looking at Tang Zheng's smile that was not a smile, his heart turned cold. He already understood that this was definitely not that simple. Tang Zheng deliberately let this rumor fester, and many people believed it to be true. There must be some purpose behind this. However, he couldn't guess what Tang Zheng was doing. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he stared at Tang Zheng. He had already seen through the clues. His cultivation has increased. He actually couldn't see through Tang Zheng's cultivation. One had to know that he was in the Mahayana realm, and Tang Zheng used to be in the 9th stage of the demigod realm. Since he couldn't see through him, the other must have crossed that threshold. "You're also in the Mahayana realm?" Wuxia asked in shock. Tang Zheng smiled and didn't answer, but it was equivalent to a tacit agreement. Wuxia's face turned deathly pale as he immediately realized that his situation was even worse. There were martial artists in front of him and behind him was Tang Zheng. He was attacked from the front and back and was pincered from the front and back. This was a dead end. Most importantly, Tang Zhang had endured for so long because he wanted to break through. Now that he had returned with a strong momentum, he had a big plan. Of course, Wuxia didn't know that Tang Zhang was trying to buy time for Li Xiaotian to be resurrected. So he played along and made the world think that he was dead. Tang Zhang didn't explain further. He glanced at Wuxia's expression and said, Wuxia, you just said that you went to the 100,000 mountains. Why did you go there? Apart from Buzhou Mountain, there was no other valuable thing in the 100,000 mountains, so he was very puzzled as to why Wuxia went there. Wuxia's heart tightened. He snorted and said, Why should I tell you? Tang Zhang shook his head and said, Wuxia, you still don't understand the current situation. If I didn't take action, do you think you could escape from these warriors unscathed? Wuxia's face turned red. He raised his head and said stubbornly, No matter what, I don't need your pity. I won't pity you. Everything you've done to me, even if I kill you, it won't be enough to relieve the hatred in my heart. Why would I pity you? Tang Zhang said coldly. Wuxia had already expected this and wasn't surprised. He laughed loudly. That's right. You can't wait to kill me, but am I not the same? You've ruined my plans time and time again, causing the Yellow Emperor to have no hope of reviving. You are the enemy of my entire Yellow Emperor tribe. If you hadn't summoned 9 golden crows and almost destroyed the world, why would I have stopped you? You brought all of this upon yourself. You don't care about the life and death of others, so how could you blame me for ruining your plans? Tang Zhang snorted disdainfully, not agreeing with Wuxia's words. Wuxia was speechless. Of course he knew the price of everything he had done. If he didn't have a choice, he definitely wouldn't have done this. But in order to revive the Yellow Emperor, in order to stop Qi Yu's plan, he had no choice but to take the risk. Wuxia was shocked by Tang Zhang's few words and was almost speechless. The other martial artists understood and knew Tang Zhang's identity. They looked at him in shock, bewildered. Their expressions changed as they asked, You're Tang Zhang? Tang Zhang slightly turned his head and stared at the martial artists. He sneered, It seems that you've also heard of my name. Then who can tell me who you are? How did your cultivation suddenly increase by leaps and bounds? How did you become so strange? You want us to speak? Dream on. The martial artists weren't afraid and instead tried to fight back. You and Wuxia are both cultivators, so you are the natural enemies of us martial artists. This is the blessing of the heavens for the two of you to appear in front of us together. Then don't blame us for being impolite. Tang Zhang was stunned for a moment before he began to laugh loudly. This group of martial artists were really arrogant. They actually treated him as nothing and wanted to get rid of him and Wuxia together. You don't have much ability, but your tone isn't small. Li Xiaotian agreed. In the ghost realm, even in such a dangerous situation, Tang Zhang was still able to escape. Although this group of martial artists was powerful, she felt that it was laughable to look down on Tang Zhang like this. He didn't know whose subordinate the other party was, but he was actually so arrogant and conceited. The martial artist obviously did not think that he was arrogant, but was full of confidence as he said, Kill them and report back. The others nodded in agreement. A fierce battle was unavoidable. Tang Zhang nodded towards Li Xiaotian and warned, Be careful later. Li Xiaotian smiled, patted the heaven-shocking bow in his hands, and said, I have this, they can't hurt me. Whiz. Without saying a word, Tang Zhang rushed towards the martial artists. The martial artists roared and rushed towards Tang Zhang with killing intent, as if they were determined to win. On the contrary, Wuxia relaxed. No one was targeting him anymore. He wanted to take the opportunity to slip away, but his curiosity made him stop in his tracks. Tang Zhang had come back from the dead, and would definitely become his formidable opponent. He wanted to find out how strong Tang Zhang had become. Whoosh whoosh. A martial artist raised the large blade in his hand and slashed down. The blade light was dazzling, and the invisible force attacked Tang Zhang's face first. However, a black hole appeared in front of Tang Zhang, and the sharp qi and the flashing treasure were all sucked into the black hole, disappearing without a trace. When the martial artists saw this, they were all shocked. It was obvious that they had never seen such a divine ability before. Tang Zhang pointed his finger at a martial artist, and the other party immediately discovered that he was unable to move, as he was firmly bound by the suction force of the black hole. He struggled non-stop, but there was nothing he could do. He couldn't break free from this terrifying power at all. Whiz! This martial artist had no choice but to fly directly towards the black hole. He was quickly swallowed by the black hole and disappeared. Tang Zheng's heart stirred, and a portion of his mind was immersed in the heavenly realm. When the martial artist was sucked into the black hole, he did not appear in the heavenly realm, but there was an additional ball of energy in the heavenly realm. Tang Zheng was shocked and could not help but feel a lingering fear. Back then, he had used the soul-devouring technique of the sky-swallowing technique to suck the souls of Dizong of Goguryeo and Li Xiaotian into the black hole. If he really did that, he was afraid that he would never see Li Xiaotian again. This martial artist was an example. His physical body did not appear in the heavenly realm, and even his soul did not appear in the heavenly realm. Tang Zheng immediately remembered those people who had been sucked into the black hole, but they were not found in the heavenly realm in the end. That could only mean one thing. These people who had been sucked into the black hole had been dissolved into the most primitive energy by the black hole. Humans were made up of a certain amount of energy, and the black hole happened to restore this energy, causing it to return to its original state and turn into energy for Tang Zheng to use. Moreover, this energy also contained a certain amount of vitality, which was the vitality that he used to create plants in the past. I understand. So the vitality in the heavenly realm must be left behind by the people who were sucked into the heavenly realm in the past. This matter was really shocking. Even Tang Zheng had never thought that it would be like this. However, he immediately calmed down. After all, he had figured out the origin of the vitality in the heavenly realm. If he wanted the heavenly realm to have more vitality in the future, he would have a way. However, this move could not be used carelessly unless it was absolutely necessary. After all, these vitality were all fresh lives. The martial artists wanted nothing more than to kill him, so he naturally would not pity these people. Although he was kind-hearted, he would not be so soft-hearted. He turned his gaze and locked onto this group of martial artists as if he saw countless vitality. Chapter 1392. Instantly, Tang Zheng made up his mind. No matter what, he absolutely could not allow the tiger to return to the mountain. Let this group of people leave and spread the news. Tang Zheng would try his best to buy as much time as possible to avoid attracting Ji Wuxiang's attention prematurely. Ji Wuxiang was an ambitious person. Once he had this kind of strength, he would definitely not be willing to be left out. From the fact that he sent people to ambush Wuxia, it could be seen. His spearhead would not only target Wuxia, but also Qi Yu. This was definitely the opponent he wanted to defeat the most. After all, Qi Yu's strength was unprecedented. Ji Wuxiang would definitely not sit idly by and do nothing. Instead, he would think of ways to deal with Qi Yu. This was precisely in line with Tang Zheng's goal. When the sandpiper and the clam fought, the fisherman would benefit. No matter who won or lost between Ji Wuxiang and Qi Yu, once the outcome of this battle was decided, these two people could not be the winner. Only Tang Zheng, who would sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, could be the winner. The only thing he needed to do was to suppress the news that he was not dead and let the outside world continue to think that he was dead. To do this was not difficult. The most crucial part was to get rid of these martial artists in front of him. His gaze lingered in a circle, and the killing intent in his eyes gradually grew stronger. The martial artists clearly sensed this, but they were not afraid. Instead, they volunteered to take a few steps forward, with the intent to fight to the death. Wuxia's eyes darted around. He finally understood that Tang Zheng's actions were not seeking death or seeking survival in the cracks. After all, their tenacious struggle was worthy of respect. Kill! The martial artists launched a fierce attack again, their killing intent filling the sky. Tang Zheng stretched out his hand and a black hole appeared in front of him. Swish! 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 Several martial artists were immediately sucked in without even a scream. The others' expressions did not change. They were indifferent. Come here! Tang Zheng roared. The palm of his hand also produced a suction force. The martial artists did not have time to resist and were sucked into his palm. The martial artist's expression did not change as he shouted, "Why did you catch me? If you don't want to speak, then I will personally pry open your mouths." Tang Zheng's killing intent soared as he coldly said. The martial artist's heart trembled, and he put on a strong front and said, "I'm not afraid of your petty tricks." Tang Zheng smiled faintly. "You're not afraid, are you? We'll see in a moment." As soon as he finished speaking, A ball of black light appeared in Tang Zheng's palm. Ah! A miserable shriek resounded through the sky as black light flickered. Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to him and concentrated on dealing with the martial artist. The hero in his hands had completely surrendered. The information in his brain had been taken away by Tang Zheng using the soul-searching technique, and he himself had become a fool. Chapter 1393. Not only was there a lot of information in Tang Zheng's brain, but the star power in the martial artist's meridians was also transmitted into his body through the palm of his hand. The soul-searching technique scoured the martial artist's brain for information, while the sky-swallowing technique absorbed the martial artist's power. This group of martial artists was completely different from other martial artists. Ordinary martial artists had inner strength in their bodies, but this group of martial artists had the original star power in their bodies, which had not been transformed into inner strength at all. This was equivalent to a new cultivation method, which opened Tang Zheng's eyes. While he was shocked, he also felt like he had obtained a treasure. He lacked the star power the most. Since that was the case, he naturally could not waste it. Thus, he looked at the other martial artists with a thought-provoking gaze, like a hungry beast seeing a sumptuous meal. At the same time, the information he searched made his heart sink. This group of martial artists was indeed Ji Wuxiang's men. Ji Wuxiang had already broken through the threshold set by the Emperor of Heaven and soared into the sky. What realm had Ji Wuxiang's cultivation reached? They had no way to tell. However, one thing was certain. Ji Wuxiang could transform martial artists and use the star power to increase their cultivation in a short period of time. In addition, the star power's attribute was higher than the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, so even cultivators could not see through a martial artist's cultivation. This group of martial artists was originally the best of the best. After being transformed by Ji Wuxiang, their strength had increased to another level. They had actually soared to the martial king realm, and one of them had even reached the martial emperor realm. What kind of concept was this? In the past, martial artists who had reached the grandmaster realm were very rare. They were considered true experts. But now, the grandmaster realm was not even enough to be looked at. They could only be considered small fries. It was no wonder that this group of martial artists was so arrogant. If they suddenly became so powerful, no matter who it was, they would become arrogant. Tang Zheng felt the pressure suddenly increase. The martial artists had become so powerful. It was another rising force that was definitely not inferior to Qiyu. This was a situation that no one had expected. Ji Wuxiang is really a genius. Tang Zheng couldn't help but sigh. All of this was the result of Ji Wuxiang's efforts. If it had been anyone else, even if they had the right time, they definitely wouldn't have been able to achieve this. Although they were enemies, Tang Zheng couldn't help but respect them. Of course, he was not afraid. Ji Wuxiang is definitely at the martial emperor realm. This means that he is no weaker than a Mahayana realm cultivator. I wonder how Qiyu will feel after hearing this news. Qiyu was ambitious and wholeheartedly wanted to unify the world. If he knew that there was a strong enemy like Ji Wuxiang, he would definitely not sit still and wait for death. His heart skipped a beat, and he was even more certain that he couldn't make it public. While everyone thought that he was dead, he would let them fight to the death. In addition, this group of martial artists could actually activate the heavenly chess to a certain extent. Although it was only a portion of the heavenly chess power, its power was already very impressive. The heavenly chess power was invisible. In fact, even the person being attacked couldn't sense it. Wuxia was like this. He only felt that his strength seemed to be reduced, which was why he was in such a sorry state. Wuxia thought that it was because of him, but in fact, he was unknowingly attacked by the heavenly chess. This was especially frightening. Tang Zheng was shocked. He looked at the sky and the surroundings. At first, even he didn't notice this. After all, he didn't think in this direction. However, at this moment, he calmed down and really felt the heavenly chess power. This power had already become very faint, faintly discernible. If he didn't know the various mysteries of the heavenly chess, he wouldn't be able to sense it at all. For example, even if Wuxia told him, he wouldn't be able to sense the heavenly chess power. Tang Zheng sighed inwardly. He looked at Wuxia with a bit of pity in his eyes. The great expert of the Yellow Emperor tribe actually ended up in such a sorry state after being besieged by a group of unknown martial artists. Wuxia's heart skipped a beat. He felt a little uncomfortable under Tang Zheng's gaze. He was on guard, thinking that Tang Zhang was going to do him harm. He was very clear about the threat and impact his actions had on Tang Zheng. He didn't think that Tang Zhang would let him go. However, the shock in Mo Xie's heart was also indescribable. He was in such a sorry state after being chased by this group of martial artists. However, in front of Tang Zhang, this group of martial artists didn't cause any waves. Especially the power displayed by the black hole. It terrified Mo Xie. He knew that this was the sky-devouring skill. Obviously, the sky-devouring skill's power had increased again. Tang Zheng's cultivation had also improved by leaps and bounds. He wasn't inferior to him. Mo Xie already had the thought of leaving. He would act according to the situation and leave before Tang Zheng finished off this group of martial artists. Otherwise, what awaited him definitely wouldn't be good. Tang Zheng retracted his gaze. He didn't care about Mo Xie's thoughts. Instead, he focused his attention on the martial artists. The martial artists were frightened by his stare. They roared angrily and formed seals with their hands. The power of stars gushed out from their bodies and affected the celestial chess. The power of the celestial chess erupted, attacking Tang Zheng one after another. This attack was formless and invisible, making it hard to guard against. However, Tang Zheng wasn't an ordinary person. With a thought, he quietly took a step forward and dodged the celestial chess attack. Then, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll, he took light and quick steps. Each time, he would take a step before Tianqi could attack, causing all of Tianqi's attacks to miss. The martial artists were shocked. Their eyes widened, staring at him as if they had seen a ghost. How did you do it? Li Xiaotian and Mo Xie's hearts shook. They had a strange feeling. What did the martial artists mean by that? Mo Xie was experienced and knowledgeable after all. Staring at Tang Zheng's feet, he came up with an idea. Could it be that he's avoiding something? But why don't I feel anything strange? He didn't understand the celestial chess, so of course he wouldn't feel anything. Immediately, he felt even more confused. He couldn't see through it at all. This was a huge blow to him. Tang Zheng looked at the martial artists with a smile and said, "You are Ji Wuxiang's people. Didn't he tell you that he's not the only one who understands the mysteries of the celestial chess? You're a cultivator. How could you understand the mysteries of the celestial chess?" The other party still couldn't believe it. Tang Zheng snorted coldly. He thought to himself that if Ji Wuxiang hadn't tricked him, this celestial chess might not have succeeded so quickly. He also played a part in this. Now that he thought about it, he was filled with regret. However, he didn't say this out loud. Seeing that Tang Zheng did not say anything, the martial artist began to feel apprehensive. The celestial chess was their greatest reliance, their magic weapon for victory. It seemed that they had been too blindly optimistic. The power of the celestial chess couldn't threaten Tang Zheng, so how could they be a match for Tang Zheng with their little cultivation? They saw that Tang Zheng was like a wisp of green smoke, rushing into the group of martial artists with a whoosh, as if no one was there to catch him. They all roared angrily, but it was useless. They only saw a figure pass by, and a black light flashed. Then, the star power in their bodies flowed out like a flood, leaving their bodies. Tang Zheng didn't have any intention of letting the tiger go back to the mountain. After the sky-devouring technique absorbed their star power, the black hole flashed, and this group of people disappeared into the black hole, turning into wisps of vitality and appearing in the heaven realm. Mo Xie wanted to wait for an opportunity to escape, but before he could even take that step, he didn't expect Tang Zheng to eliminate the enemy in a flash of lightning. He was immediately stunned on the spot, his face stiff, and he didn't know what to do. Li Xiaotian looked at Tang Zheng in high spirits. This was the man of her dreams. That vigorous and decisive appearance was so handsome, enough to charm thousands of girls and make them burst with joy. She couldn't bear to look away, as if it would be her loss if she didn't look. However, Mo Xie didn't want to look at Tang Zheng at all. He wanted nothing more than for him to ignore him, treat him like air, and ignore him. However, Tang Zheng slowly turned his head and locked his gaze on him. Mo Xie's heart was beating like a drum, but he didn't want to show his fear on the surface. He said, "Tang Zheng, you didn't die, and your power has increased greatly." Tang Zheng sneered. "This is all thanks to you. Do you still want me to thank you?" Mo Xie didn't completely understand the meaning of his words. He waved his hand and said, I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. Wait. Tang Zhang moved his feet and blocked his path. You want to leave just like that? We still haven't settled the debt between us. Mo Xie could see the killing intent in Tang Zheng's eyes. His heart trembled as he said, Since you want to settle the debt, then I'll settle it with you. You've obstructed my Yellow Emperor tribe's operations time and time again, and you keep saying that you're not in cahoots with Qiyu. Do you think I'll believe you? Mo Xie had escaped too quickly at the peak of Sky Mountain, so he didn't see what Qiyu did to Tang Zheng. Although Tang Zheng and Qiyu were always competing, Mo Xie still had a trace of doubt in his heart. He believed that Tang Zheng and Qiyu were inextricably linked. Whether you believe me or not, that's your own business. The problem between me and Qiyu has nothing to do with you. I just want to settle the debt between us. Tang Zheng didn't comment and said coldly. Mo Xie took a step forward and said in an imposing manner, What do you want? What are you going to do in the 10,000 mountains? Tang Zheng directly asked. This was what he had heard from Mo Xie just now. A question mark appeared in his heart. At this critical moment, Mo Xie definitely wasn't going to the 10,000 mountains to relax, but to have some other secret or unspeakable goal. He naturally wanted to get to the bottom of this. Mo Xie's expression changed slightly as he stared straight at Tang Zheng and said, Why do you care what I'm going to do? Tang Zheng wrinkled his eyebrows. If you don't cooperate, then don't blame me for being merciless. While speaking, the black hole appeared in Tang Zheng's palm again. It grew bigger and bigger, as if it was about to swallow Mo Xie. Mo Xie suddenly froze, his heart trembling. He had already seen the power of the swallowing heaven technique, especially when it had swallowed 9 golden crow souls. It was enough to see how terrifying it was. Mo Xie didn't have the confidence to win. He stared fixedly at Tang Zheng for a few seconds. Seeing that he was about to lose his patience, he hurriedly said, Humph, do you think I'm afraid of you? I'll openly go to the 10,000 mountains and tell you where it is. He spoke in a dignified manner, but in reality, he was really afraid of Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng understood this point, but didn't point it out. He quietly waited for him to continue. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you've become stronger. Let me tell you, there are more experts in this world than you can imagine. Mo Xie said in a low voice. Oh, then I'd like to hear what other experts there are. Tang Zheng said with interest. Chapter 1394. Tang Zheng's expression remained the same. There was not a trace of surprise on his face. Instead, there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Percent 22 hum? 22 Moi's eyes widened in suspicion. After a while he said, Percent 22 why aren't you surprised at all when you hear about the inner demons? 22 Tang Zheng looked at him with a half smile and asked, Percent 22 why should I be surprised? 22 why should I be surprised? Chapter 1395. You want to see Tian Chanzi? Tang Zheng looked at the stubborn Mo Xie in shock, unable to understand. Mo Xie's expression was firm as he nodded. Yes, I want to see him. The sooner the better. Why? Tang Zheng asked with a frown. When you see him, everything will naturally come to light. Mo Xie purposely kept them in suspense. Tang Zheng didn't buy it. He simply crossed his arms and said indifferently, If you don't say it, then don't even think about seeing Tian Chanzi. You know very well the relationship between him and me. If I say you can't see him, then you absolutely can't see him. Tang Zheng's unyielding attitude made Mo Xie suddenly startled. His expression froze as he stammered and didn't know what to do. Mo Xie stared straight at Tang Zheng. His eyes wanted to spit fire, but he also felt helpless. Finally, he sighed helplessly and said, Okay, then I'll tell you. Actually, this is just a guess of mine. What guess? Master's remnant soul hasn't disappeared. It's just hidden in Tian Chanzi's body. Mo Xie's tone was mixed with excitement. He had originally despaired, but after hearing about the great battle in the deep canyon, his heart immediately lit up with the light of hope. This time it was Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian's turn to be shocked. They looked at each other, unable to describe their feelings with words. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul could actually still be in Tian Chanzi's body? If it wasn't for Mo Xie's reaction that didn't seem to be acting, Tang Zheng would probably scoff and think it was nonsense. But now he definitely didn't think it was nonsense. Wuxia was so excited, so it was most likely true. Wuxia looked straight at the two of them, very understanding of their feelings, and said, "Now you should be able to understand my feelings." Actually, Wuxia didn't want to tell anyone about this at all to avoid new problems, especially since Tang Zhang had repeatedly stopped him from reviving the Yellow Emperor. However, this matter involved Tian Chanzi, and he had no way of bypassing Tang Zhang. Therefore, he had no choice but to tell the truth. If Tang Zhang continued to obstruct him, there was nothing he could do. However, he would definitely fight back and seize this one and only opportunity. At that time, the two of them would definitely fight to the death. He stared at Tang Zhang with burning eyes, waiting for his answer and reaction. Their eyes met. Tang Zhang could truly understand Wuxia's feelings. He muttered to himself for a moment and said, "I understand. However, even though Tian Chanzi and I have been together almost all the time, I have never found any signs of the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul in his body." Wuxia faintly smiled and said, "If Master was so easily discovered, then he wouldn't be Master." Tang Zhang rolled his eyes and said, "All right, I'll wait and see." Wuxia's eyes lit up as he impatiently asked, "You mean you agree?" Tang Zhang calmly asked back, "What reason do I have to refuse? However, I have a question. If you want to use the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul to revive him, won't that cause a calamity in the human world?" Wuxia shook his head like a rattledrum and said, "How could that be? With Master's remnant soul, why would I need to sacrifice so many innocent lives for something so far away?" Tang Zhang's eyebrows twitched as he coldly snorted and said, "You also know that those are innocent lives. However, in your previous actions, have you ever cared about their lives?" Wuxia's face alternated between red and white as he guiltily explained, "That was because I was in a hurry to revive Master. Only Master can lead this world to a brighter and more glorious future." "A bunch of nonsense." Tang Zhang snorted disdainfully. "This world revolves without anyone. As long as I'm here, I will never agree to sacrifice countless lives to revive one person." These words were resolute and decisive, leaving no room for discussion. Wuxia understood Tang Zhang's thoughts even more and looked at him with a burning gaze. For a moment, his heart actually wavered a little. Back then, Master was also this determined when he was young. That was why he was able to stand out from countless other tribes and establish great achievements. However, he immediately shook his head and rejected this absurd idea. He thought to himself, how could Tang Zhang be compared to Master? Tang Zhang let out a breath of relief. As long as Wuxia did not wholeheartedly sacrifice innocent lives to revive the Yellow Emperor, then he would be much more at ease. As for whether or not to stop Wuxia from reviving the Yellow Emperor, Tang Zhang hesitated for a moment as he could not find an answer for now. Tang Zhang chose to agree because he also wanted to know whether or not the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was still in Tian Chanzi's body. He had seen the power of this remnant soul. This was related to Tian Chanzi's life and death, so of course he could not ignore it. Only Wuxia could find out whether or not the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was still in existence. Both sides reached an agreement, and Tang Zhang brought Wuxia home. Wuxia looked at Tang Zhang from time to time and asked about the final situation of the battle at the peak of Sky Mountain. Tang Zhang did not mention that Li Xiaotian did not hesitate to sacrifice his life for him. Not long after, the three of them arrived at a place not far from the villa. The formation had already been activated, blocking their path. Tang Zhang was familiar with the place. He activated the formation and walked in with Wuxia. Wuxia looked around and understood. "You've made your home impregnable. It's no wonder that even though news of your death has spread, this place hasn't suffered too many attacks. You've made so many enemies. This result isn't easy to achieve." Tang Zhang also looked around, deliberately avoiding the patrolling witch tribe warriors, and quietly walked to the villa in the middle. Halfway there he glanced at Wuxia and said indifferently, "If you want to have any ideas about this place, you have to first see how many lives you have. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died." Tang Zhang's words were not exaggerated. Not only did the house have a formation as the first defense system, but there was also the Empyrean Fairy, an expert, guarding it. It was not a place that ordinary people could invade. The villa area was very quiet. Obviously, during the time he was away, it was quite peaceful here. Tang Zhang heaved a sigh of relief. The three of them silently appeared outside Tianqianzi's window. "Who is it?" A low shout came from inside the house, and a sharp aura shot out through the window. Tianqianzi had discovered their whereabouts. Tang Zheng flew in through the window, and a sharp attack came unexpectedly. He casually reached out and dissolved the attack, saying, "Tianqianzi, it's me." His voice was not loud, but it was like a clap of thunder, shocking Tianqianzi and stopping his follow-up attacks. Ding! The lights were on, and there were 3 more people in the room. Tianqianzi's pupils shrank, and he first found Tang Zheng. He could not hide his surprise and said, "You're back." Although it was not the first time Tang Zheng went to the ghost realm, Tianqianzi was still very worried. After all, this time was different from before. He was going to bring Li Xiaotian back to life. Tianqianzi knew that he could never do it. In this world, only Tang Zheng dared to do so. But now Tang Zheng was standing in front of him alive, and Li Xiaotian was standing beside him, which meant that it was a success. Tianqianzi really wanted to cheer a few times and give Tang Zheng a big hug, but his eyes moved slightly, and his smile immediately froze. It was as if his face suddenly changed. His smile disappeared, and with a schwa, he became incomparably gloomy. He stared straight at Wuxia, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. His entire body shivered, and he was ready to attack. He cautiously said, "It's you. You actually dare to come here." Tianqianzi had fought with Wuxia several times, and his impression of this face was too deep. He did not expect to see this face in his room. How could he not be surprised? In a flash, many thoughts flashed through his mind. Could it be that Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian were controlled by Wuxia, and were forced to bring him here? Tianqianzi was ready to fight at any time, and he stared at Wuxia like a tiger watching its prey. Wuxia's expression was excited, as if he had seen a treasure, and he stared at Tianqianzi, which made Tianqianzi's heart tremble. "What are you looking at me for?" Tianqianzi asked, his heart palpitating. Wuxia stretched out his hand, wanting to grab Tianqianzi and carefully examine him. Tianqianzi suddenly stepped back, and with a whoosh, a sword light flashed, and the cold light of the long sword was in front of him, ready to fight. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily, and said, "Tianqianzi, don't have such a big reaction." Tianqianzi looked at him and said, "Boy, don't worry, I'm here, and I won't let him do whatever he wants. I will definitely save you." "Save me?" Tang Zheng was stunned for a moment, and pointed at his nose. His eyes rolled, and he suddenly realized that Tianqianzi had misunderstood. "Tianqianzi, you don't need to save me, I'm fine. Don't worry, I'm not being threatened by him." Tang Zheng's explanation didn't dispel Tianqianzi's doubts, and he stared hatefully at Wuxia, saying, "Did you cast some kind of evil spell on Tang Zheng, so that's why he said those words to numb me?" Seeing that his misunderstanding was getting deeper and deeper, Tang Zheng hurriedly walked over and grabbed his arm. Wuxia didn't move. Tianqianzi looked at Tang Zheng's hand in shock, and then looked at the familiar face in front of him, confirming that it was Tang Zheng, and not someone else in disguise. "Boy, what the hell are you doing?" Tianqianzi asked, bewildered. "I'm not doing anything, someone wants to see you, and I just brought him here," Tang Zheng said, pointing at Wuxia. "He wants to see me?" Tianqianzi doubtfully confirmed that Tang Zheng wasn't being threatened, but after hearing Tang Zheng's words, he felt that it was inconceivable. "Yes, he wants to see you," Tang Zheng repeated. "What's there to see him for? He's our enemy, and you brought him here, aren't you afraid of danger?" Tianqianzi asked in a bad mood. He had a deep understanding of Wuxia's power, which was why he was so afraid of Wuxia. Wuxia didn't get angry, and only said awkwardly, "It's true that I want to see you, but I have something very important to confirm with you." "I have nothing to talk about with you," Tianqianzi said bluntly, and secretly winked at Tang Zheng, as if to say that they should solve this problem together. Tang Zheng looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile, and said, "Tianqianzi, don't worry, he really has something to talk to you about." Seeing that Tang Zheng didn't take the bait, Tianqianzi was helpless, and complained about him in his heart, saying, "What business could there be between him and me?" Wuxia stared at Tianqianzi, but couldn't see anything for a while, so he simply said, "I want to confirm whether or not Master's remnant soul is still in your body." Chapter 1396. Tian Chanzi obviously knew who Xia's master was. It was the Yellow Emperor. The Emperor's remnant soul had left a deep impression on him. It was the first time in his life that he had lost control of his body. It was more frightening than the fear of death. Fortunately, he used his perseverance to take back the initiative. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul had disappeared without a trace, as if it had disappeared from the world. His face was ashen as he bitterly glared at Wuxia and said, "You're really daydreaming. You still want to find that remnant soul in my body." Wuxia didn't have much of a reaction as he stubbornly said, "Master's remnant soul appeared in your body before, so of course I have reason to believe that it is still in your body." "Nonsense. If it was in my body, then would I still be standing here alive? Humph. Haven't I already been controlled by him?" Tian Chanzi unhappily retorted. Wuxia calmly said, "Master's remnant soul has been here for so many years and is already very weak. You are also not an ordinary person, so of course he can't always control you. That's why he is still in your body." "You make it sound so amazing. It's like you really saw it with your own eyes." Tian Chanzi curled his lips and said disdainfully. Wuxia said, "Although I didn't see it with my own eyes, I believe in Master. His remnant soul won't scatter so easily." Seeing him speak with such certainty, not only did Tang Zhang and Li Xiaotian somewhat believe him, but even Tian Chanzi couldn't help but feel his heart beat like a drum. Could it be that the remnant soul is still in my body? He hurriedly circulated his energy and checked his body. As usual, he didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Immediately, he hurriedly suppressed his doubts and firmly said, "This is my own body, so I have the most right to speak. How is it your turn to tell me what to do?" Wuxia didn't give up and said, "I only need to check it once." "In your dreams." Tian Chanzi turned his head. There was no room for discussion. Wuxia's face froze. His heart felt like it was on a roller coaster, falling from the peak to the bottom. But he still didn't give up. He turned his head to look at Tang Zheng, as if he wanted him to persuade him. Tang Zheng's head moved. He was not in a hurry to convince Tian Chanzi. Instead, he said, "Wuxia, this matter can't be rushed. As the saying goes, the road to happiness is strewn with setbacks." Wuxia opened her mouth as if she wanted to refute, but swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. She bitterly nodded, her expression lonely. "I'll stay. One day, I'll get to the bottom of this," Wuxia said unwillingly. Tian Chanzi snorted and didn't even look at him. The two of them were clearly competing. Tang Zheng looked on coldly. His heart moved. Leaving Wuxia here was not a good thing. After all, this was his base camp. There were too many people he cared about. If he left Wuxia alone, what if he hurt them? Therefore, Wuxia absolutely could not be given too much freedom. "Wuxia, didn't you want to know if the remnant soul is still there? Then you can only wait. During this time, for the sake of safety, I have to find another place for you." Wuxia raised an eyebrow and asked, "Where?" "Sumi Tian." Tang Zheng raised his hand. "You have to stay in my Sumi Tian for a period of time. Of course, if you don't agree, then it's a different matter." Wuxia's expression changed uncertainly. He stared at Tang Zheng's hand. He knew very well that this was a risky move. Once he entered Sumi Tian, he would be in an absolutely passive situation. In the future, would he be able to break through the restrictions of Sumi Tian? What if Tang Zheng imprisoned him for life? After all, Tang Zheng was the master of Sumi Tian. But if he didn't agree, then he would never be able to find out if the remnant soul was still there. "I'm all alone anyway. This is my only chance to turn defeat into victory. If I give up because I'm afraid, then I'll never be able to resurrect Master." His mind was full of thoughts as he pondered. Tang Zheng must be like me. He also wants to find out if the remnant soul is still there. This concerns Tian Chanzi's safety. He definitely won't dare to take it lightly. So, he will definitely let it go. Once there was a chance to leave Sumi Tian, then he wouldn't be imprisoned in Sumi Tian forever. As long as there was a chance to see the light of day again, he was confident that he could turn danger into safety. "Okay, I promise you." After a while, he nodded heavily and agreed. Tian Chanzi was stunned for a moment. He looked at Wuxia as if he was looking at a fool. He actually agreed to this condition. This risk was too big. Tang Zhang wasn't surprised because he knew what the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul meant to Wuxia. He had to give it his all. As for Sumi Tian, he wasn't worried about Wuxia running amok there. Because there was still a Master Shura in Sumi Tian. During the trip to the world of spirits and souls, Shura was taken in by Dizong of Goguryeo. However, when Tang Zhang left the world of spirits and souls, Dizong of Goguryeo returned Shura to him. Dizong of Goguryeo found a lot of marks of Tang Zhang on Shura's body. This was because he recited the Ksitigarbha Sutra every day and left the marks on Shura's body. As the parties involved, Shura and Tang Zhang didn't notice this. However, the powerful Dizong of Goguryeo did. Suddenly he understood one thing. Shura and Tang Zhang already had some kind of mysterious connection. Rashly taking Shura away from Tang Zhang might not be a good thing. Moreover, Tang Zhang actually gave Shura wisdom. This was something that Dizong of Goguryeo didn't expect, and it made him very happy. He understood the value of variables and hoped that Tang Zhang could create more miracles. After Shura experienced the war in the world of spirits and souls, he seemed to be in awe of Tang Zhang. Since returning from the world of spirits and souls, he quietly stayed in Sumi Tian. With Shura monitoring Wuxia, Tang Zhang wasn't worried that he would cause any trouble. Tang Zhang stretched out his hand and Sumi Tian on his wrist lit up. He said, "Then come in." Wuxia gave up resisting and calmed down. With a flash of light, he disappeared and appeared in Sumi Tian. Wuxia and Tang Zhang's skills were similar. If Wuxia didn't give up resisting, Tang Zhang wouldn't be able to take him in even with Sumi Tian. Wuxia blinked and found himself in Sumi Tian. Shura was standing in front of him. He deeply sized up the Azura and understood Tang Zhang's intentions. Looking at the Azura's covetous eyes, he chose to wait and see. He believed that Tang Zhang would definitely let him out. Tian Chanzi looked like he had seen a ghost. He looked at this scene in disbelief and said, "You brat, you actually made him willingly go to Sumi Tian. Tiske. Amazing." As he said this, he gave a thumbs up. It was harder to make an expert like Wuxia yield than to kill him, but Tang Zhang did it just like that. It was really amazing. Tang Zhang looked at Tian Chanzi with a smile and said, "Isn't this all thanks to you? If he didn't want to know if you have the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul in your body, he wouldn't have agreed to my condition." Tian Chanzi snorted and rolled his eyes, saying, "I just said that there's no such thing as a remnant soul in my body. How could my body not know? I know better than anyone else. How could I let him check my body with just a few words?" Tang Zhang knew of Heaven Monk's violent temper, so he followed along and said, "Your words are indeed reasonable. How can we be led by the nose by him?" Since Wuxia was already in Sumi Tian, Tang Zhang wasn't in a hurry to let him out. If he didn't take this opportunity to torture him, he wouldn't be able to vent the anger in his heart. Therefore, he wasn't in a hurry to persuade Tian Chanzi. He understood Tian Chanzi and knew that there was a trace of doubt in his heart. If it were anyone else, their heart would be in a mess upon hearing this news. In the end, everyone wanted to know the answer. Tian Chanzi was no exception. Tang Zhang didn't persuade him, nor did he force him. He waited for Tian Chanzi to take the initiative to speak. Tian Chanzi was still panting with anger, saying, "Kid, you're getting more and more reckless. You even dare to bring back anyone. That's Wuxia, not a cat or dog." Tang Zhang modestly nodded and said, "Yes, what you said. If there's such a thing in the future, I'll definitely deal with the other party first." Tian Chanzi was stunned and said resentfully, "It's not like that. I just think that your actions are too risky. This is a critical time, not a normal time. You just came back, so you don't know that the situation in the human world has changed greatly, right?" Tang Zhang raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "What changes? Speaking of which, you won't believe it even if you beat me to death." Tian Chanzi laughed, deliberately keeping him in suspense. Tang Zhang didn't rush him. Seeing that he was done with showing off, he finally said, "Martial artists have already walked down the stage of history. The government has already announced the existence of cultivators. Instead, the status of cultivators is highly respected." The government announced the existence of cultivators, and highly respected? Tang Zhang was really shocked. In any case, he didn't expect this result. Why would the government do this? What good would it do him? A lot of questions appeared in Tang Zhang's head. Tian Chanzi was very satisfied with Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian's reactions. He looked at the two of them proudly and said, "You definitely can't guess who is the person who is pushing for this. You know this person, and you have a lot of conflicts." Tang Zheng furrowed his eyebrows as several figures flashed through his mind. In the end, it settled on one person. Could it be the chief? Tian Chanzi clapped his hands and praised, "You brat, your brain is really sharp. You actually guessed it right." After a pause, Tian Chanzi laughed and said, "Are you very surprised and taken aback? Not only you, but everyone who knows the inside story is very surprised. He actually pushed for this matter. Tisk tsk. Tang Zheng said, "There must be a reason for this. Every move of these people has a deep meaning. It's definitely not a spur-of-the-moment action. But what good would it do him?" Tang Zheng couldn't think of it. He was eager to ask the chief face to face. However, he calmed down immediately. The situation had changed so much. There must be a lot of twists and turns. Chapter 1397. Tang Zheng was really stunned by this bombshell. The cultivators actually started to chase after the martial artists. Wasn't this the same as how New Era dealt with the cultivators back then? No, this was probably the revenge of the cultivators for the enmity of the past. Although it had been hundreds of years, most of the cultivators had not forgotten that shameful thing. The high and mighty cultivators had actually been expelled from this world by the martial artists. This was a great humiliation. No matter what, they would never forget it. Who is behind all this? Tang Zheng asked in a deep voice. There were many martial artists around him. Not to mention the big families. There were also those who followed him in the ordinary balance. Most of them were also martial artists. They were also targets to be hunted down. How could he sit back and do nothing? "I knew you would ask this," Tian Chanzi said proudly. "I sent people to investigate a long time ago. There are already results." Who is the mastermind behind this? Tang Zheng couldn't wait to ask. Tian Chanzi said slowly, "Actually, you can definitely guess it even if I don't say it. Yes, it's Qi Yu. Other than him, who else would do such a thing?" Although he was not expelled back then, the Devil Clan was expelled after all, and he had many of the people involved back then. Now that they have defeated the Yellow Emperor's old subordinates, they will naturally look for the martial artists to settle this score. Tang Zheng did not say a word. It could be said that he agreed with Tian Chanzi's words. This was also something that Qi Yu would do. How many martial artists have died? Not too many. After all, there are too many ordinary people. Although it is easier than finding a needle in a haystack, it is impossible to find every martial artist accurately. Tian Chanzi said. "What about the martial artists related to us? They have not been affected yet, but I believe it will be soon, especially the Yen family. A tall tree attracts the wind. Qi Yu will definitely not let them go." Tian Chanzi said worriedly. "Qi Yu is determined to do this. Who can resist? However, I've heard of a rumor in the pugilistic world recently that there seems to be a mysterious organization roping in martial artists to become their safe haven. This organization was rumored to be miraculous. It was said that they could fight against Qi Yu. Many martial artists heard this and went to seek refuge with this mysterious organization." Tian Chanzi frowned and said in surprise. Obviously, Tian Chanzi had not received the latest news about this mysterious organization that had suddenly appeared. Tang Zheng felt a chill run down his spine. He suddenly had an idea and said, "This organization is actually not that mysterious. You won't be surprised if I tell you." Tian Chanzi's eyes widened in curiosity. Azure Dragon Palace. Tang Zheng blurted out, "This must be Ji Wuxiang's plan." Besides him, who else would have such a big mouth? How could it be him? Wasn't his mind disturbed by the Emperor of Heaven's words? Tian Chanzi said inexplicably. Tang Zheng smiled faintly and told Tian Chanzi about the martial artists joining forces to kill Mo Xie. Tian Chanzi's expression immediately became very interesting. Not even in his dreams did he think that a martial artist could become so powerful. Even Mo Xie wasn't a match for him, let alone him. Immediately, his confidence suffered a serious blow, and he smiled bitterly with a pale face. The world changes with each passing day, constantly changing. Not only do you make me feel ashamed, even other cultivators have caught up with me. Alas, Life is unpredictable. Tang Zheng was not surprised by Tian Chanzi's sigh. He said, "This is all because of the heavenly chess. Only by destroying the heavenly chess can we destroy Ji Wuxiang's plan. You also said how powerful the heavenly chess is. How could it be so easy to destroy? Moreover, martial artists have the power of the stars. This is a higher level of energy than the world's spirit energy. This indicates that martial artists have already taken the initiative." Tian Chanzi chatted on. Suddenly, he paused and said thoughtfully, "In this world, the Azure Dragon Hall is not the only martial artist. Don't we also have martial artists? Then can we also let them use the power of the stars?" Tang Zheng rubbed his temples. After thinking for a while, he said non-committally, "I'm afraid it can't be done for the time being. Ji Wuxiang must have grasped a mysterious method to allow martial artists to do this." Heaven Monk let out a long sigh and said, "Then this is going to be difficult. How could Tang Zheng not know this? Since you're back, then everyone has a backbone. Before, I didn't realize your importance. This time you've been gone for so long, and so many things have happened. Everyone is helpless. Your importance is really showing." Tian Chanzi said with a smile that was not a smile. The news of Tang Zheng's death caused a great shock. The situation in the capital had already undergone subtle changes. The Yen family, who was originally at the peak of their power, had become low-key. It seemed that they could dilute their own existence. The capital was no longer a pile of loose sand. The power of the government had risen again. After all, this was the center of power. Once the government exerted its power, without the Yen family's restrictions, the result could be imagined. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. He patted Tian Chanzi's shoulder and said, "Don't be modest. Your importance is no less than mine. If the family didn't have you, how could I feel at ease going to the ghost realm? By the way, your trip to the ghost realm seems to have been very fruitful. She was successfully resurrected, and your cultivation, I can't see through it anymore. Did it increase again?" Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Zheng with interest and said. Tang Zheng smiled. "I'm a bit lucky. My cultivation has reached the 2nd grade of the Mahayana stage." "What?" Tian Chanzi was so shocked that he almost jumped up. He stared at Tang Zheng as if he was looking at a monster. He said suspiciously, "2nd grade of the Mahayana stage, kid, did you ride a rocket? This speed is too fast." "It's just luck, hee. Tang Zheng said modestly. "Humph kid, you really have dogshit luck. Others can't reach this realm even if they cultivate for countless years. But you, kid, have only been cultivating for a few years. Sigh, are Skywalkers really so powerful?" Tian Chanzi was incomparably envious. "Are you jealous?" Tang Zheng joked. Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes and said, "I'm only jealous, not envious. It's really annoying to compare yourself to others." "Haha, Tian Chanzi, don't be discouraged. I believe you will also have a day like this." Tang Zheng patted him on the shoulder and comforted him. "Of course, who am I, Tian Chanzi? Not to mention the 2nd grade of the Mahayana stage. Even the 9th grade of the Mahayana stage is not a problem," Tian Chanzi said heroically, but he seemed to have a guilty conscience. His voice was getting smaller and smaller as he said the last few words. The 9th grade of the Mahayana stage was not so easy. In the thousands of years of Kingsuman's history, only the founder of a free sect had reached the 9th grade of the Mahayana stage. Looking at the entire cultivation world, there were very few masters of the 9th grade of the Mahayana stage. "Is there any news about the Empyrean fairy?" Tang Zheng's expression became slightly more serious as he asked in a deep voice. This was one of the questions he was most concerned about. In the battle on the peak of Sky Mountain, the Empyrean fairy was kidnapped by Qi Yu. In order to force the Emperor of Heaven to appear, the 4 symbols venerables were thrown out and their whereabouts were unknown. Yesterday, I mentioned that the Empyrean fairy was in charge of the family. It was a slip of the pen, sorry. At that time, before he went to the ghost realm, he had told Tian Chanzi to find a way to find out the whereabouts of these two. Tian Chanzi's face was full of guilt as he said resentfully, "I'm really useless. I still don't have any news about her." Tang Zheng sighed inwardly and waved his hand, saying, "It's not your fault. The Empyrean fairy is definitely with Qi Yu. Qi Yu's strength is high, so how could an ordinary person find him?" Even though he said this, Tian Chanzi still couldn't help but feel guilty. He said, I will continue to send people to find her whereabouts. Li Xiaotian's eyes flickered as he said, I'm back. I will mobilize the resources of the Li Palace and see if there are any clues. Tian Chanzi said happily, Yes, while you were gone, I came into contact with a portion of the Li Palace's affairs. There are so many things to take care of that my head hurts. I really don't know how you managed it in the past. Now that you're back, there will definitely be news soon. Li Xiaotian smiled faintly and said, Senior is too kind. Although there is no news of the Empyrean Fairy's whereabouts, there is news of the four symbols venerable. I'm just about to go verify it. Tian Chanzi changed the topic. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up as he asked, Where is the four symbols venerable? 1,000 li away from Mount Tian. Tang Zheng nodded inwardly. The four symbols venerable had been sent flying by Qiyu and was actually 1,000 li away. From this one could see the power of this attack. He also didn't know if the four symbols venerable had been injured. But since he knew the specific location, there was no reason not to look for them. Moreover, there was no time to lose and he had to set out immediately. Tian Chanzi saw through Tang Zheng's thoughts and said, Are you going to look for the four symbols venerable? Tang Zheng nodded. Yes, the current situation is confusing and becoming more and more dangerous. I must find the four symbols venerable as soon as possible. That's fine. However, while you were gone, everyone was very worried about your safety. Don't you want to meet with them first? Tian Chanzi asked for his opinion. Tang Zheng thought for a while and said, No need. I'll meet with everyone after I bring the four symbols venerable back. You can tell them first, but remember not to reveal that I'm still alive to the outside world. I don't want us to attract the attention of everyone at this time. Tian Chanzi nodded thoughtfully, understanding Tang Zheng's good intentions. Nowadays, there was no faction that was easy to deal with. They were far more terrifying than the factions of the past. If they attracted the attention of everyone and became the focal point, they would definitely become the center of attention. Keeping a low profile and letting others fight to the death was the right way to go. Qiyu isn't an idiot. He'll definitely hear about the rise of the martial artists under Ji Wuxiang and definitely won't let them go. So let's wait and see first, Tang Zheng warned. Tian Chanzi chuckled and gave him a thumbs up. You're still the smart one. I'm going back to the Li Palace. Li Xiaotian suddenly said, Don't worry, I won't leak the news. I'll definitely think of a way to find out about the Empyrean Fairy's whereabouts. Tang Zheng looked deeply at her and held her hand. He said gently, Then you must be careful. Don't try to be brave. Li Xiaotian smiled tenderly and said, Don't worry, I can't bear to leave you again. Tian Chanzi looked at the two in surprise and thought to himself, This kid is really enlightened. He's won another heart. Chapter 1398. According to the location provided by Tian Chanzi, it was only a little more than 10 kilometers away. This distance was a piece of cake for him. He cast an illusion to hide his figure. Like a gust of wind, he crossed rivers and mountains and went straight to his destination. Unless it was a top expert, ordinary shoujo wanting to discover his whereabouts was tantamount to a fantasy story. Chapter 1399. Deity! A cry of alarm rang out. Then, as if the crowd had come to life, they started to shout loudly and kowtow to Tang Zheng, kowtowing non-stop. The several mountain deity descendants were so scared that their souls were about to melt. They were dumbstruck like wooden chickens. Chapter 1400. The Four Symbols Supreme spoke tirelessly about his origins and even the origin of this world. Tang Zheng's thought swayed. He had created mountains and rivers in the heaven realm, which was equivalent to creating a world. It was similar to the creation of heaven and earth described by the Four Symbols Supremes. If he was the creator of the heaven realm, then who was the creator of this world? The Four Symbols Supremes could not say who the creator was, but there was definitely such a person. Otherwise, it was impossible to create heaven and earth, and it was impossible to polish a rock into the Four Symbols Supremes. Tang Zheng subconsciously raised his head. The blue sky stretched as far as the eye could see. Could there be a creator above the 9 heavens? Tang Zheng shook his head and abandoned this unrealistic thought. It was confirmed that there was a creator in this world, But whether or not the creator was still around was still unknown. The tribe that brought me back was the shaman tribe. I became the shaman tribe's guardian. Later on, the shaman tribe gradually developed and became the Ninely tribe. After the Battle of Zhualu, I was sealed in the 100,000 mountains with the shaman tribe. The four symbols Venerable gave a simple explanation of his origins and experiences. Tang Zheng understood everything clearly and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. No one would have thought that the four symbols Venerable would actually have such a mysterious origin that involved the origin of this world. Then how did you find yourself? Weren't you injured by Qi Yu? Tang Zheng asked curiously. During my battle with Qi Yu, I was injured and was sent flying. Then, I landed on this mountain. My consciousness was on the verge of disappearing, but at the last moment, the seal in my body was completely removed, giving me a new life. I became one with the mountain and absorbed the energy in the mountain range to recover bit by bit. Tang Zheng was in high spirits. So that was how it was. Qi Yu wanted to kill the four symbol supremes, but he had a powerful background after all. Before his death, he triggered his seal. After the seal disappeared, his life could be considered to have been saved. He found his true self and became one with the heaven and earth mountain range. He absorbed the mountain range's energy for his own use and silently healed his injuries. Tang Zheng's arrival was a trigger mechanism that allowed him to completely come to life and transform into his current appearance. Can you become smaller? Tang Zheng looked up at him and asked. Of course. The four symbols Venerables became shorter bit by bit. Mounds of dirt rose up from the ground one after another, and then they became undulating mountains. Other than the fact that the mountains were bare and there was no vegetation, there was no other difference. The four symbols Venerable rapidly shrank, and before long, he returned to his original size. However, he didn't stop there. In the end, he became the size of an ordinary person. Tang Zheng looked at this scene in surprise. He was really surprised and happy. However, the pleasant surprise did not end there. The four symbols warrior's body flashed with light, and he turned into a human. Even though Tang Zheng was experienced and knowledgeable, he did not expect this to happen. The four symbols Venerable had turned into a person, a handsome young man. Master, if I become like this, it'll be more convenient for me to stay by your side. The four symbols Venerable smiled brightly. Tang Zheng was slightly startled, and gradually understood. Your true body is a spirit stone, just like Linger. Once your cultivation reaches a certain level, you can transform into a human, right? The four symbols Venerable smiled and nodded. Master is right. Everything had a spirit, even a stone. Of course, ordinary stones could not transform into humans even after millions of years, but the four symbols Venerable was a spirit stone to begin with. That was why he could transform into a human. After thinking this through, it was naturally not difficult to understand this scene. He stared at the four symbols Venerable with a burning gaze. From now on, the four symbols Venerable did not need to stay in Sumeru world. He could properly roam the mortal world. This was probably an experience he had never had before. From now on, you'll stay by my side. Tang Zheng instructed. It's not good to call you the four symbols Venerable in front of too many people. How about I call you four symbols? Four symbols. He tilted his head and thought for a while, then nodded happily. That's a nice name. From now on, I'll be called Four Symbols. His smile was bright, clean and pure. He really looked like a young man. Tang Zheng stared at him without blinking. He was infected by his smile, and his mood improved for no reason. The four symbols Venerable was the same as Linger. They were both spirits that had transformed into humans, and their minds were pure. Even though the four symbols Venerable had experienced so many things in the shaman tribe, his temperament was still the same. Four symbols. I'll give you a mission. You have to try your best to remember who the person who polished you was when the world was created, and what characteristics he had. Do you understand? Tang Zheng still wanted to understand the matter of the creation of the world, so he solemnly instructed. The four symbols Venerable nodded without hesitation. Yes, Master. I'll do my best to remember. Then let's go home. Tang Zheng glanced at the crowd lying on the ground in the distance, not daring to move. He guessed that such a big commotion would probably attract the attention of people with ulterior motives. Qi Yu's forces were growing stronger day by day, so he would definitely investigate the big movements in various places. Such a commotion was indeed very shocking. The four symbols venerable naturally had no objections. He stepped on the somersault cloud with Tang Zheng and disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. The crowd lay on the ground, not daring to get up for a long time. They did not even dare to raise their heads to look, as if they were deeply afraid that the immortal would be angry. After a long time, they did not hear any movement. Only then did they raise their heads, but there was no trace of the immortal in the sky. They felt lost. They had seen the immortal, but they did not make a wish to him. This was a great loss. They scattered in all directions, sighing as they prepared to leave. However, they hadn't gone far when a few more people flew over from the sky. Immediately, there were people who bowed their heads. However, a black light flowed under their feet, revealing an evil aura. They were Qi Yu's subordinates, the Jiuli tribe. The name of the devil tribe no longer existed. The devil tribe had been completely transformed into the Jiuli tribe by Qi Yu. The Jiuli tribe looked at the bare mountain range below and were all shocked. They did not see that scene, but from the scene, they could feel the shock. However, their role was to investigate what exactly happened. Naturally, they could not just take a look and return home. They landed one after another and asked in front of the crowd. There was no need to threaten or bribe them. Some people spilled beans from a bamboo tube and described it in a lively manner. After listening, they all revealed shocked and puzzled expressions. They had never heard or seen these people's descriptions. They could not help but doubt the authenticity of these people's descriptions. "Did you lie and deceive us?" a Jiuli tribe member asked fiercely. "We wouldn't dare, we wouldn't dare." The ordinary people hurriedly waved their hands. The others also nodded. "You are immortals from the heavens. How dare we deceive you?" Obviously, the ignorant people thought that these Jiuli tribe members were immortals. When the Jiuli tribe heard this, they all laughed disdainfully. "Immortals, haha, how ridiculous." The laughter stopped abruptly. The Jiuli tribe members exchanged glances and nodded secretly. This news was very important. In order to prevent the news from leaking, these witnesses could not be left alive. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Rays of light shot out from their treasures. Blood splattered. In less than a minute, everyone's life came to an end. Chapter 1401. Qi Yu listened to the report and revealed a shocked expression. He angrily asked, "A mountain turned into a giant and can merge with other mountains? In the end, this giant turned into a living person?" "Yes, this is what those people saw with their own eyes. We have compared their testimonies and there is no mistake," the 9 Li tribesman respectfully said. Qi Yu deeply frowned. This was something he had never heard of or seen before. He knew that monster beasts could transform into people, but how could a mountain turn into a person? Could a mountain also become a spirit? Inexplicable. But these people swore solemnly and were definitely not lying. The only explanation was that this matter had an unknown mystery. Only by knowing the situation more clearly could they know the inside story. Only, if the 9 Li tribesmen did not see it with their own eyes, there was no way to know who those 2 people were. Especially the person at the beginning. He was the most important person. Troubled times, there are more and more strange things happening in this world. Qi Yu pondered for a long time and sighed. His eyes flashed and he sternly ordered, "All of you listen to my orders. We must find clues to these 2 people as soon as possible. In addition, there is a more important matter that is our top priority." "What is it?" "The people we sent to hunt down the cultivators encountered resistance from mysterious people. This group of people are also cultivators, but their strength is different from ordinary cultivators. They can actually injure our tribesmen and cause one of our teams to be completely annihilated." Qi Yu's voice was like a large bell. His tone difficult to conceal his anger. "What? Cultivators can actually injure our tribesmen?" Everyone was shocked. This group of people was originally from the demon race and their strength was not low. Ever since they became the 9 Li tribesmen, their strength increased day by day. If they were completely annihilated like this, then how powerful were these cultivators? Everyone thought of this and the shock in their hearts could be imagined. Qi Yu coldly snorted and said, "It is precisely because of this that we should investigate clearly who this mysterious group of cultivators is." Pausing for a moment, Qi Yu's killing intent soared and he murderously said, "No matter who they are, they must be eliminated. Yes, we must get rid of them. Everyone agreed and left to carry out the order. Qiyu was the only one left in the large hall. With a thought, the wall behind him slowly turned into a door. He walked in step by step. The lanterns were brightly lit, illuminating his gloomy face. Empyrean Fairy, your father, the Emperor of Heaven, still hasn't come to save you. It seems like your father-daughter relationship isn't that deep. You can actually watch your daughter be trapped and turn a blind eye. Qiyu said meaningfully. As soon as he finished speaking, a ball of flame lit up in the darkness in a corner, illuminating a person's figure. The Empyrean Fairy stood there with her long hair fluttering in the wind. She looked rather haggard. They had suffered heavy losses in the Battle of Sky Mountain. Not only had she been captured alive, but according to Qiyu, Tang Zhang was already dead. This was what shocked her the most. Although she still had a trace of luck in her heart, after careful analysis, this trace of luck seemed to become more and more remote. She was very clear about the consequences of detonating pure yang energy because she had the 9 saint body. She had experienced the pain and even the danger of detonating pure yin energy. If I hadn't hesitated and had sex with him, using my pure yin energy to balance his pure yang energy, he might have been able to escape danger. She couldn't help but regret. This feeling grew with each passing day. If she was given another chance, she would definitely have made a different choice. Hearing this, the Empyrean Fairy raised her head and looked straight at Qiyu. She said, "Qiyu, my father won't fall for your trick." Haha, father and daughter are connected by heart. I believe that one day, he will come to save you. I'm very patient. Qiyu said with a smile. The Empyrean Fairy snorted coldly and didn't say anything else. Qiyu didn't mind and continued, "When the time comes and I subdue the Emperor of Heaven, I'll have another general and the world will be in my hands even faster." Qiyu clenched his fists as if victory was within his grasp. Don't daydream. You want to become the ruler of this world. Have you asked everyone? You don't have the slightest bit of benevolence. No wonder you lost to the Yellow Emperor in the Battle of Zhualu. This was the pain in Qiyu's heart. These words fiercely stabbed Qiyu. His eyes were cold as he said, "Benevolence? Humph, what's the use of that? The Yellow Emperor is benevolent? I don't think so. Moreover, the soul of the Golden Crow no longer exists. He has no chance of resurrecting. So what if he won the Battle of Zhualu? The one who laughs last is the true winner. Now, the only one left in the Yellow Emperor tribe is Wuxia. She can't make any waves. The glory of the Yellow Emperor tribe is gone forever." The Empyrean Fairy snorted and retorted, "How long do you think you can be so glorious? Don't be too happy. Who knows, you might end up in an even worse state." "Ha ha ha, I'll end up in an even worse state?" Qiyu laughed maniacally. "Your words are too childish." After a slight pause, Qiyu said firmly, "Just you wait. I'll let you see the day when I unify the world. I'll prove that I'm more suitable for this world than the Yellow Emperor. I'll make this world stronger. Don't forget, there's still the sky beyond heaven. The spatial isolation between this world and the sky beyond heaven is very weak. The demons can return and the people from the sky beyond heaven can come to this world. I'll see how you deal with them when the time comes." The Empyrean Fairy raised another thorny issue. Qiyu's expression stiffened, but immediately returned to normal. He said disdainfully, "What's there to fear from the sky beyond heaven? It's good that they're here. I want to settle old scores with them. They've killed many of my clansmen. I'll use their blood as a sacrifice to the souls of my clansmen in heaven." The Empyrean Fairy sneered, too lazy to say another word. If the sky beyond heaven were so easy to deal with, the cultivators wouldn't have been so miserable after being banished to the sky beyond heaven. The demons wouldn't have been so impatient to return to this world. In front of the Empyrean Fairy, Qiyu couldn't gain any advantage with words. He flung his sleeves and left without looking back. Southern Yunnan had already become the headquarters of the Azure Dragon Hall. With the Long family as the core, countless martial artists gathered here. The martial artists' strength had greatly increased, and their bodies all possessed the power of the stars. These martial artists were all loyal to Ji Wuxiang. At this moment, Ji Wuxiang frowned, unable to hide his anger. Grandma Li stood at the side, killing intent appearing in her eyes as she said, "High Lord, our people have been completely annihilated. This grudge must be avenged." Ji Wuxiang glanced at Grandma Li and said, "That's a Wuxia, who told them to act on their own accord and actually chase after him. Don't you know how powerful he is?" Grandma Li stammered, "This is my dereliction of duty." They were patrolling in southern Yunnan when they suddenly encountered Wuxia. That's why they decided to chase after him. After all, cultivators are our enemies. Humph, why don't you look at your own strength? Do you really think you're invincible? Ji Wuxiang asked. Grandma Li quickly said, "I will definitely give the order. This kind of problem won't happen again in the future." Ji Wuxiang pondered for a moment, then said, "Since they've already sacrificed themselves, then I won't pursue the matter. I heard that you even caught Yi Meiyu?" "Yes, I was just about to ask the Venerable One how to deal with her. She's Yi Xuanji's granddaughter. Let him deal with her." Ji Wuxiang thought for a moment, then said, "Yes." Grandma Li did not raise any objections. Did the Yan family reply? Ji Wuxiang asked again. Grandma Li hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, "He has already replied, but he rejected us." "Rejected us?" "Humph. Looks like Yan Patian wants to go all the way and completely annihilate the Yan family," Ji Wuxiang said meaningfully. Ever since Ji Wuxiang completely controlled the heavens chess, he had been recruiting people everywhere, searching for martial warriors experts. Although the power of the stars could increase a martial warrior's power, if this martial warrior was already very powerful, then it would naturally be easier for him to increase his power and reach a higher realm. Most of the martial warriors in the world were in a few great clans. Now, the only great clan left was the Yan family in the capital. Ji Wuxiang started to have ideas about the Yan family, threatening and enticing them, trying to make the Yan family submit to him. This way, he would have more martial warriors and nurture more experts. Ji Wuxiang knew very well that he didn't have much time left. His continuous actions must have attracted Qi Yu's attention. Who was Qi Yu? He would definitely not do things sloppily. Once Qi Yu focused all of his attention on them, a huge battle would definitely break out between the two sides. Right now, it was just a small test of his strength. Once the test was over, a great battle would be unavoidable. Ji Wuxiang had to take advantage of this gap to search for as many martial warriors as possible. The many martial warriors of the Yan family were a part of them. However, for some reason, the Yan family did not submit to him at all. Could it be that the Yan family is still counting on Tang Zhang? He doesn't even have bones left. How can he protect the Yan family? He's daydreaming. Qi Yu muttered to himself, unable to figure it out. Grandma Li had an idea, and said, "Why don't we send people to exterminate the Yan family, and kill the chicken to warn the monkey?" Qi Yu immediately waved his hand. "There's no need to go through so much trouble, it's too troublesome. If Yan Patian chooses to perish, I will fulfill his wish." Grandma Li did not say anything else and took her leave. In the cell, Grandma Li saw the haggard but still charming Yi Meiyu, and walked towards her step by step. Yi Meiyu was trapped in the cage, looking at Grandma Li listlessly. Grandma Li stared straight at her and suddenly shouted, "Get up!" Yi Meiyu stood up as if it was a conditioned reflex. She looked at her suspiciously and said, "You want to kill me? You have repeatedly gone against us. If I don't kill you, what are you doing here?" Grandma Li did not smile and said coldly. Yi Meiyu's face was pale and ashen. She was about to make a name for herself, but she never thought that she would encounter such a mishap. Was he really going to die? She was unwilling and hurriedly said, "Don't kill me. I am Yi Xuanji's granddaughter. What happened in the past was just a misunderstanding. I came here together." Grandma Li had long heard of her ability to take advantage of the situation, so she was not surprised. Her temper was very good, and she sneered, "It's already too late, but I'm not the one who decides your life and death. Someone else will." After Grandma Li finished speaking, Yi Xuanji walked in from the door. Chapter 1403. Yi Meiyu looked at him in shock. After being absent-minded for a few seconds, she shouted as if she had seen her savior. "Grandfather, quickly save me! I am your granddaughter, Meiyu." Grandma Li did not stop her, but said with a cold expression, "Now you know that you are his granddaughter? When you joined forces with the rest of the Ye family to monopolize the Ye family and isolate him, did you ever think that you were his granddaughter?" Yi Meiyu's face froze, Knowing that this was her fatal flaw, she had an idea, and said while crying, "That was all because I was controlled by Lu Wuxin. It was not my own intention. I did not want to do that at all." Grandma Li was so smart. How could she be deceived by this 3-year-old child's lie? She said coldly, "Your mind is being controlled? You really dare to say that?" "Really, grandfather, you must believe me. Now that Lu Wuxin is dead, I can't wait to come find you," Yi Meiyu hurriedly said. Grandma Li did not refute her, she only turned to Yi Xuanji and said, "Lord means that you can decide how to deal with her." Yi Xuanji nodded solemnly and said, "Thank you, Lord. I hope you don't disappoint, Lord." After Grandma Li finished speaking, she took a step back and made room for Yi Xuanji. Yi Xuanji and Yi Meiyu were very close to each other. Their eyes met, and Yi Meiyu's eyes were filled with fear and pleading. Suddenly, there was a slight fluctuation in Yi Xuanji's eyes. Yi Meiyu keenly noticed this and was overjoyed. Her face became even more miserable, and her pleading expression became even more sincere. 2 drops of tears flowed out from the corners of her eyes. The fluctuation in Yi Xuanji's eyes became even more intense. Yi Meiyu was secretly delighted, thinking that victory was in her hands. "Yi Meiyu, do you know the harm you have caused to our Ye family?" Yi Xuanji finally spoke. His voice was low and deep, suppressing the anger in his heart. Yi Meiyu hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Grandfather, that was all because I had no choice. I had no choice. I grew up in the Ye family. How could I do anything to harm the Ye family? You taught us to love this family since we were young, and I have always remembered it in my heart." Yi Meiyu cried and sobbed, her voice choked with emotions. Li Xiaotian just kept sneering. She didn't believe this nonsense at all. Yi Xuanji's eyes fiercely twitched a few times, and said in a deep voice, "But your actions are contrary to what I taught you. That was what Lu Wuxin and Mo Xie asked me to do. It really wasn't my intention." Yi Meiyu hurriedly explained. "I just want the Ye family to become stronger and become the leader of the major families. I know that this is also Grandpa's wish and goal. I also want to help Grandpa." Yi Xuanji did not correct the truth in his words, and said, "What about your brother Yi Ku? What did you do to him?" After Yi Xuanji was forced to leave the Ye family, the Ye family really fell apart. As for Yi Ku's whereabouts, he did not hear any more words. Back then, Yi Ku betrayed Yi Xuanji and threw herself at Yi Meiyu. This matter was a huge blow to Yi Xuanji. After all, he had always had high hopes for Yi Ku. At the last moment, he even gave her the right to decide all the affairs of the family. Yi Ku had basically become his successor. But he never thought that Yi Ku would betray him. He almost couldn't believe all of this, and even his faith in life was about to collapse. The children that he had educated had actually betrayed him and abandoned him. This blow was undoubtedly cruel and serious for an old man. When Yi Meiyu heard the 2 words Yi Ku, the corner of her mouth twitched twice. Her expression became extremely unnatural, but she quickly covered it up. "Grandpa, Big Brother is staying in a safe place. Now that the situation is complicated, I can't protect him. I can only hide him in a safe place." Yi Meiyu said. "Where is that?" Yi Xuanji was excited. Yi Meiyu didn't even blink and said, "A place. This is a mountain. Without me, you can't find them." "In the mountains." Yi Xuanji muttered to himself, his eyes filled with hope. Things had changed, and things were no longer the same as before. He desperately wanted to find his grandson and have him join Ji Wuxiang's camp. That way, Yi Ku could become stronger, and he could subtly influence him and beat around the bush. It might not be impossible for him to turn over a new leaf. In this way, the Ye family would once again have a successor, and would inevitably rise again. What Yen family? They would be unable to withstand a single blow. The Ye family would have the last laugh, become the final victor, and become a big family that would not fall. Seeing that Yi Xuanji was skeptical, Yi Meiyu quickly promised, "Yes, he is in the mountains. I can go find him. I believe that he also misses Grandpa very much. At that time, our family can be reunited again." Family reunion. Yi Xuanji's expression changed slightly, his eyelids twitched, and he seemed to be quite moved. Yi Meiyu seemed to want to strike while the iron was hot, and really persuade Yi Xuanji, then her life might be saved. But before she could say anything, a light voice rang out, but this voice was no less powerful than a sudden clap of thunder. Yi Meiyu, your disguise is too good. Even now, you still dare to speak nonsense. Do you really think that no one in this world can see through you? Li Xiaotian looked straight at her, his eyes full of contempt. A trace of panic appeared in the depths of Yi Meiyu's eyes. She pretended to be calm and said, Grandma Li, I don't know what you're talking about. Even if I really did something inappropriate, it was still under Lu Wuxin's control, and definitely not out of my own heart. Yi Meiyu seemed to be afraid of something, and deliberately put down these words to clear her name and find a way out. Yi Xuanji seemed to have sensed something, and also looked at Yi Meiyu curiously. Grandma Li directly said, Humph, Yi Xuanji, your granddaughter is too good at acting. If I didn't know the inside story, I'm afraid I would have been deceived by her. Yi Xuanji asked in a daze, Grandma Li, what inside story? Grandma Li looked at Yi Xuanji and couldn't bear it. This news would definitely hurt him and make him suffer. But after hesitating for a moment, she still told the truth. Your grandson Yi Ke died a long time ago. He died in her hands. Grandma Li pointed at Yi Meiyu and said resolutely. What? Both of them exclaimed. Yi Xuanji looked at Yi Meiyu in shock and said with a trembling voice, You killed your brother? Yi Meiyu panicked, as if she did not expect that such a deep secret would be made public. She looked at Grandma Li in horror, then looked at Yi Xuanji. She bit her lips and roared crazily, No, I didn't kill him. She's talking nonsense. He's my brother, how could I kill him? Yi Xuanji's eyes were bright and full of spirit, as if there was a light shooting out from his pupils that could pierce through everything. He stared at Yi Meiyu without blinking. She couldn't help but feel a little guilty, but she still puffed up her cheeks and stubbornly raised her head. A smile appeared on the corner of Grandma Li's mouth. The bigger Yi Meiyu's reaction, the bigger her smile became, making people feel scared. Yi Meiyu's heart also gradually became scared. There was a voice asking herself, I'm the only one who knows about this. How did she know? Although your ability to lie is very high, you are still too inexperienced in front of me. Grandma Li shook her head and sighed. Look at me and Yi Xuanji, who are we? We have experienced countless storms and scams. Do you think there are any scams that can deceive us? Yi Meiyu's voice was getting weaker and weaker, and her breathing was involuntarily hurried. Her eyes were flustered, as if she was looking for an opportunity to escape. She knew very well that Yi Ku was Yi Xuanji's flesh and blood. She was the chosen successor of the Ye family, but she died in her hands. Her fate could be imagined. The atmosphere was getting more and more oppressive, making it hard for people to breathe. Yi Xuanji finally opened his mouth and asked with a trembling voice. You really killed him? Yi Meiyu wanted to say something but hesitated. Yi Xuanji interrupted her and said, I'll only give you one chance. Once you miss it, you won't have another chance. He's not dead. Yi Meiyu hesitated again and again, but insisted. Grandma Li sneered, looking at Yi Meiyu as if she was looking at a dead person. Yi Xuanji shook his head. Yi Meiyu, you disappoint me too much. Since you were young, I have always followed your temperament and did not interfere with you. I didn't expect you to do such an unforgivable thing as killing your brother. You are really hopeless, and your death is not regrettable. Hearing these words, Yi Meiyu completely panicked. She knew that her lie had been seen through. Moreover, Yi Xuanji's heart was already cold, and he had the intention to kill. She could no longer hide it, and knelt down in front of Yi Xuanji, crying bitterly. Grandfather, I beg you to spare me. This was not my original intention. I didn't want to kill him. He forced me. I had no choice but to do so. He forced you? Humph. Yi Xuanji smiled bitterly. Yes. He always wanted to persuade me to return to the Ye family. In the end, he even threatened me with his life, which was why an accident happened. All of this was an accident. He persuaded you to return to the Ye family, and threatened you with his life? Yi Xuanji was shocked, and his expression changed slightly. Yes. At this point, Yi Meiyu no longer had anything to hide. He left the Ye family and submitted to me. The most important condition was that he could not hurt you. Back then, Lu Wuxin wanted to hurt you, and he had no choice but to do so for your safety. What? Yi Xuanji's entire body trembled. This time he was truly shocked. He had always thought that Yi Ku had betrayed him, but it turned out that there was still an inside story. He had no choice but to compromise in order to protect Yi Xuanji. Yi Xuanji did not dare to imagine how much grievance he had endured, but he could not help but think about it. Immediately his entire body trembled, his heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife, his face was ashen, and he weakly muttered to himself, "My good grandson, you have suffered a great grievance, grandfather has wronged you, it is grandfather's fault." His voice became hoarse. There were too many people in the Ye family who went against his concept. When Yi Ke betrayed him, he almost collapsed. Because that meant that he had been betrayed, and no matter how much he had achieved in his life, he would be overshadowed by all of this. He thought that he was a complete failure, and that he had no face to face the ancestors of the Ye family. At this moment, although his heart was in pain, he seemed to have come back to life. At least, the biggest stone in his heart had disappeared. Chapter 1404. In the capital, Tang Zheng and the four symbols walked together. They had all used illusions, so even if it was a passerby, it would be extremely difficult to discover their whereabouts. Unless it was someone with an extremely high cultivation. Tang Zheng had already figured out that the reason why his illusions on the mountain peak had failed was because of the influence of the four symbols. Now, although he had the four symbols as his helpers, he did not plan to immediately appear and attract the attention of all parties. The two of them quietly returned to the villa area, only to discover that there were guests at home. Tian Chanzi was receiving them. From afar, looking in through the window, Tang Zheng saw Yan Patian. His expression was stern as he conversed with Tian Chanzi. Tang Zheng did not enter the hall. Instead, he went around to the backyard and left the four symbols behind. He soared into the air and arrived at Marshall's window. He had already discovered that there was no one in Yi Dingdang and Fang Shishi's rooms. They must have gone to school to attend classes, and since there was someone in Marshall's room, he naturally came to see her first. His women must have been worried to death about him. Although Tian Chanzi had already told them that he had returned, he did not see it with his own eyes. In the end, his heart was still not at ease. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew in from the window and lifted the curtains. Wu suddenly opened his eyes and stared straight at the window. She had been cultivating the entire time, but just now, she had a feeling that someone was spying on her. This feeling was very strange, but he couldn't help but look over. She activated her power, but did not discover anything unusual. She could not help but frown. This villa area was protected by a great array. Ordinary people would not be able to enter without making a sound. She secretly comforted herself that she was too nervous. She took a deep breath and turned around. Suddenly, her pupils dilated as a person appeared in front of her. "You're back." She leaped up like a mermaid out of the water and pounced towards Tang Zheng. She was completely different from her usual calm and composed self. Tang Zheng looked at her with a smile, opened his arms, and tightly hugged her in his embrace. He stroked her jet-black hair and said, "I made you worry." The two of them were of similar height. Marshall and his eyes met. Silent emotions were transmitted from each other's eyes and quickly ignited, turning into thick flames. Marshall raised his head passionately. Tang Zheng's mind was connected, and he immediately kissed her, his passion quickly burning. The room seemed to be on fire, and passion reverberated throughout the entire space. After a long time, the two of them lay on the bed in each other's embrace. Marshall's face was flushed red, like an obedient kitten nestled in his embrace, recounting their experiences during this period of time. When she heard about the dangers of the trip to the ghost realm, Marshall's breathing became hurried, and she anxiously grabbed his hand. As the night deepened, the hall became lively. Tang Zheng heard a few familiar voices and knew that Yi Dingdang and Fang Shishi had returned home from school. Go and call them in. It was inconvenient for him to show himself, so he could only repeatedly instruct Wu. Wu nodded, dressed neatly, turned around to look at her and left the room. A moment later, with a creak, the door opened, and two figures impatiently rushed in. Like beautiful butterflies, they fluttered and danced as they threw themselves into Tang Zheng's embrace. Fang Shishi and Yi Dingdang leaned into her embrace at the same time. They looked at each other, and their deep longing for Tang Zheng overshadowed the shyness in their hearts. He could clearly feel the feelings of his children, and could not help but hug them tightly. Marshall watched from the side, her expression as usual, without the slightest bit of jealousy. Yi Dingdang lightly punched his chest and said coquettishly, "You came back a few days ago, why didn't you come to see us?" You're too cruel, causing us to worry for so long. Her fist was like tickling, and he let her hit him to her heart's content. But how could she bear to use force? After 2 or 3 hits, she stopped, pouted her pink lips, and looked at him bitterly. Tang Zheng grabbed her fist and placed it on his chest, and said guiltily, "I'm sorry I made you worry." "Hung, I'm not worried about you, it's Shirshir who is worried to death." Yi Dingdang immediately changed her words, not speaking from her heart. Tang Zheng gave a smile that was not a smile, extended his finger, and lifted Feng Shirshir's chin, and said, "It seems like I have to properly thank Shirshir for not worrying about me, you can forget about it." Feng Shirshir was extremely bashful, but was unwilling to move her gaze away. Her eyes were bright, and when she heard his words, she could not help but laugh. Yi Dingdang was greatly embarrassed, and weakly punched him a few more times, and said, "You have no feminine heart, I'll hit you, hit you." Feng Shirshir hurriedly said, "Don't listen to her, you don't know how worried she is about you. She doesn't want to eat or drink. Can't you see that she has lost weight?" "Did she really lose weight?" Tang Zheng stared at Yi Dingdang, but his gaze fell on her chest. "I don't think she lost weight. She's even bigger," he said with deep meaning. They were all Tang Zheng's women, so how could they not understand the true meaning of these words? Immediately, Yi Dingdong's face turned red, and fiercely punched him a few times. "Where are your eyes looking at?" "Of course it's looking at you," Tang Zheng said with a deadpan expression. Yi Dingdang was helpless, and rolled her eyes at this guy who spoke without thinking. Feng Shirshir covered her small cherry lips, unable to hide her smile. It was to the extent that even Marshall, who was always serious in speech and manner, had a beautiful arc on her lips. "Hang, with your flowery mouth. Did you take advantage of us not being here this afternoon to do something bad behind our backs?" Yi Dingdang suddenly had an idea, and glanced at Marshall from the corner of her eyes, and meaningfully said, "Ah." Marshall's expression immediately froze. She did not expect that the flames of war would burn her body, and her face immediately flushed red. Yi Dingdang was also a woman, so seeing this scene, how could she not understand what was going on? She glared at Tang Zheng, and her fingers fiercely pinched his waist. "Ayo!" Tang Zheng immediately cried out exaggeratedly. Yi Dingdang hurriedly covered his mouth, and sternly said, "Do you want others to find out? Didn't you not want to show yourself?" "Hee hee, you still understand me." Tang Zheng laughed, but immediately felt 2 unkind gazes sweep over him. He was shocked, and hurriedly said, "You all understand me, you all understand me." Only then did the 2 gazes slightly ease up. He could not help but sigh in his heart. It was indeed not an easy thing to have many women, and if the rain was not evenly distributed, it would cause internal conflicts. Below, Elder Yen is still discussing with Master. "I heard that Ji Wuxiang sent people to try and persuade Elder Yen to pledge allegiance to him," Feng Shirshir said with a serious expression. They already knew about the Azure Dragon Hall, and knew that the martial artists were no longer the same as before, and that the Azure Dragon Hall had undergone earth-shattering changes. Yi Dingdang and Marshall were both martial artists, so they were especially concerned about this, and could not help but subconsciously look at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng muttered to himself, "Ji Wuxiang's ambition is quite big. As long as it is a martial artist with a certain amount of power, he will not miss it." Ji Wuxiang had even recruited some unknown martial artists, so how could he let go of such a large martial artist power like the Yen family? "They haven't come up with a countermeasure yet, so what are you going to do?" Marshall asked with concern. "Since Elder Yen rejected Ji Wuxiang the first time, then naturally there won't be a second time. Because Ji Wuxiang's pride won't let him pester and lobby the Yen family." Tang Zheng analyzed. Yi Dingdang had an idea. He rolled his eyes and said worriedly, "Then you mean that Ji Wuxiang is going to make a move on the Yen family?" Tang Zheng nodded his head heavily. Yen Patian definitely knew about this, which was why he came to find Tian Chanzi to discuss countermeasures. This was their last backer. Although Tang Zheng was dead, the 2 of them were still deep allies. In times of danger, they should help each other. Feng Shirshir said worriedly, "Yen family has helped us many times, we can't just watch as Ji Wuxiang destroys the Yen family." "Of course." Tang Zheng nodded without hesitation. The Yen family rejected Ji Wuxiang, which means that they are reliable allies. Tang Zheng was very clear about how attractive Ji Wuxiang's current grasp was to the martial artists. However, Yan Patian was able to resist the temptation and pressure, and reject Ji Wuxiang's request. One could imagine how much courage he needed to do so. Just this point alone was enough to make Tang Zheng feel deep veneration. Can Ji Wuxiang really transform martial artists? Yi Dingdang asked doubtfully.
Tang Zheng nodded his head heavily. Judging from the clues we have, he can indeed do all of this.
Yi Dingdong's expression became extremely complicated. Ji Wuxiang is a genius. What he does is something that ordinary people, and even many powerful experts, cannot do. Tang Zheng added. Then what should we do? Looking at old Master Yan's attitude, if he doesn't have a definite message, I'm afraid he won't even go back. Yi Dingdang recalled Yan Potion's expression and asked worriedly. This was indeed a difficult problem. Tang Zheng wondered if he could strengthen his confidence if he appeared. The answer was yes. However, if he appeared, it was extremely likely that he would expose the news of him being alive. Why am I so old-fashioned? He even rejected Ji Wuxiang's olive branch. If I were still so wishy-washy and afraid that he would leak the news, then I would be too much of a good-for-nothing. Since Yan Patian had made this choice, then he was naturally the most trustworthy ally. What else am I worried about? He suddenly saw the light, dispelled the worry in his heart, and said to Feng Shishir, Shishir, invite Elder Yan back, but secretly bring him to the training room under the villa. I want to see him. Yan Patian did not come here alone. He had brought people with him. Tang Zheng could trust Yan Patian, but he would not trust everyone. Therefore, even if it was the people around Yan Patian, he had to be on guard. After all, this was a critical moment, and he had to be on guard. Who could guarantee that Yan Patian did not have a nail planted by someone else? Feng Shishir left the room, and after a while, Yan Patian indeed brought his subordinates and left the villa. The sky gradually darkened, and they disappeared into the night. After a long while, a person quietly returned. Under Feng Shishir's support, he quietly entered the villa. At the same time within the capital, a person passed through layers upon layers of sentry posts and arrived at the core of the room. Chapter 1405. The expression of the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign kept changing. Now that he controlled most of the upper echelons, he had great power and limitless glory. As for his true identity, no one doubted it. After all, he had used the soul-searching technique on the chief and did not miss a single detail. If he could even disguise the details, who would doubt his identity? The Yan family is no longer a concern. Ji Wuxiang will not let them go. Another thing, didn't the news from the West say that there was a strange phenomenon? How's the investigation going? The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign asked again. This time, we encountered a problem. Those witnesses were all killed and died miserably, so we don't know what happened at that time. What, they're all dead? The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign said in surprise. I'm afraid it was done by the Demon Clan, afraid that others would know the details. This matter must be extraordinary, which is why the Demon Clan is mobilizing so many people. What exactly is going on? The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign narrowed his eyes, deep in thought, but he couldn't figure it out. Ji Wuxiang and Qi Yu will definitely have a large-scale conflict. After all, the Demon Clan is taking revenge, surrounding and annihilating the martial warriors everywhere. What should we do? The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign snorted, and said, Back then, I really underestimated Ji Wuxiang. He actually modified the martial warriors and activated the power of the stars. If he is allowed to grow stronger, he will definitely become a huge problem in the future. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign was still a cultivator in his bones. He was filled with hatred towards Ji Wuxiang for changing the martial warriors and the situation of the world. Then let's set up a plan in advance and take precautions. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign nodded. Of course I know. Let me think about how to provoke the two sides to fight to the death, so that I can sit back and reap the benefits. In the villa's underground training room, Yan Patian was bewildered. He chose to believe in Feng Shishir and returned. He did not know what her intentions were. When he stepped into the training room, under the light, he immediately saw a familiar figure. This figure was very tall and straight, like a sword. Yan Potion's heart skipped a beat as he opened his eyes wide. He looked at the figure in disbelief and said, This. Tang Jing slowly turned around, and the two of them immediately looked at each other. Yen Patian was so excited that he almost had a heart attack. Young Master Tang, you're still alive. Yen Patian took a deep breath and finally recovered. Tang Zheng looked at him with a smile, nodded and said, Elder Yen, I'm sorry for keeping this from you. Yen Patian was truly shocked. He originally did not believe the news of Tang Zheng's death. After all, Yen Qingyi had once said that he was the savior. However, after a long time had passed, he did not appear, and all signs indicated that he was indeed no longer in this world. He had no choice but to accept this reality. But now, he saw Tang Zheng standing in front of him, alive and well. How could he remain calm? It was absolutely impossible for someone to pretend to be Tang Zheng and calm his mind. Tang Zheng was not someone who could be easily impersonated. His temperament and manner of speech could not be disguised at all. It doesn't matter. As long as young Master Tang is alive, it's a great thing. I'm really too happy. Yen Patian was so excited that his eyes turned red, and he lost his composure. I'm sorry, I lost my composure. I am indeed too happy. Yen Patian wiped the corner of his eyes and sighed. Tang Zheng understood his feelings and said, I understand, Elder Yen. Thank you for always believing in us and believing in Tian Chanzi. As soon as he finished speaking, Tian Chanzi walked out from the darkness. Yen Patian laughed without caring in the slightest. Now that the situation is so chaotic, if I don't believe you, who else can I believe? Although his words were somewhat helpless, his persistent trust was moving. Since young Master Tang is back, then we will have a backbone. Everything will be easy. The stone hanging in Yen Potion's heart fell to the ground as he said with relief. Elder Yen, you flatter me. How can I be the backbone of the group? Yen Patian said seriously, other than you, who else can do it? Tang Zheng smiled bitterly, and did not dwell on this question, and said, Elder Yen, I know your current predicament. You are worried that Ji Wuxiang will harm the Yen family. You can rest assured that with me here, I will definitely not let the Yen family be harmed. Tang Zheng's words were firm and unquestionable. Yen Patian nodded his head heavily. He did not question him at all, but unconditionally believed him, and said, with young Master Tang's words, it is enough. Of course, what we have to do is not only that. We can't just passively take a beating. We have to take the initiative to attack. Tang Zheng changed the topic and said, take the initiative to attack? What wise ideas does young Master Tang have? Yen Patian looked at him curiously. Not only that, the others also looked at Tang Zheng curiously. After careful consideration, Tang Jing knew that a war would definitely break out between Ji Wuxiang and Qi Yu, but he had to speed up all of this, so that the flames of war would burn even faster and even more fiercely. We are going to attack Ji Wuxiang's troops, Tang Zheng said casually, but his words were like a heavy bomb exploding with a loud bang. Everyone looked at him in shock. This was an extremely risky move. Ji Wuxiang was no longer the same as before. He would definitely defend himself to the death. If they were to attack him, it would definitely be an extremely risky move. Tian Chanzi directly said, it's too risky, we can't. Fang Shishir and the others also nodded, unwilling to let Tang Zheng take any more risks and suffer any losses. Tang Zheng understood their feelings, but still persisted. I know everyone's feelings, but we have to do this, otherwise, we won't be able to completely ignite the flames of war between Ji Wuxiang and Qi Yu. Right now, no matter which side they are on, they are all powerful and cannot be underestimated. We have to avoid direct contact with them as much as possible. Seeing that Tang Zheng had already made up his mind, everyone knew that it was useless to persuade him, and all of them had worried expressions. All of you are in the open, so there's no way for you to carry out this mission. Only a dead person like me is the most suitable candidate. They won't suspect me. Tang Zheng added. Although everyone was worried about his safety, if they thought about it carefully, this was indeed a good idea. Furthermore, I am no longer the same as before. How can an ordinary person hurt me? I am at the second stage of the Mahayana stage. Tang Zheng said confidently. Yen Patian turned pale with fright, and muttered to himself, second stage of the Mahayana stage? That was a realm that he did not even dare to hope for. Stars appeared in his eyes as he stared at Tang Zheng like a fan looking at a celebrity. This is a coincidence. Everyone will reach this realm in the future. Tang Zheng comforted. Yen Patian laughed bitterly. How could it be that easy to reach the second stage of the Mahayana stage? To martial warriors, that was the martial emperor realm. Tang Zheng looked deeply at Yen Patian. He still had one more thing in his heart that he did not make clear. He wanted to investigate the truth of the Azure Dragon Palace, and the most important thing was to find out how Ji Wuxiang had transformed the martial warriors. If he could know the mystery behind it, and if he was very familiar with heavenly chess, it was completely possible for him to replicate Ji Wuxiang's success. He also had many martial warriors by his side, so he could completely follow the instructions and transform the martial warriors by his side. At that time, the originally weak martial warriors would also erupt with great power. The two sides secretly discussed for a while, and Yen Patian carefully left with a belly full of thoughts. Tang Zheng decided to stay for the night and let the four symbols venerable see everyone. They were all surprised by his change. Since he had seen Yen Patian, Tang Zheng might as well see the Witch Clan elder. When the elder saw the living Tang Zheng, his reaction was huge, and he immediately burst into tears. During the period of time when Tang Zheng was dead, the spirit of the entire Witch Clan seemed to have been sucked away, and anyone who saw it would be moved. Tang Zheng could not bear for them to be kept in the dark. Moreover, he had another goal. The four symbols were the guardians of the Witch Clan. He wanted to ask the elders if they knew more about the four symbols. When the elders saw the four symbols that had transformed into humans, his reaction was even greater than that of Tang Zheng. He was extremely shocked, and naturally, he did not have any extra information to provide to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng had no choice but to give up. In the dead of night, he sat alone in the training room. All the girls knew that he was about to face a very dangerous journey, so they didn't disturb him. They wanted him to conserve his energy and be in his best condition to face the possible danger. Tang Zheng might as well immerse his mind in the heaven realm. The martial warriors that the black hole had absorbed a few days ago had turned into strands of life force and appeared in the heaven realm. When Tang Zheng saw this life force, he couldn't help but think of the words of the four symbols regarding the creation of the world. This world had already been successfully established, but what was lacking the most was the process of creation. This was the most difficult part. At the same time, he had a new understanding of space. In the past, he had mistakenly thought that the Sumeru world and the Sumeru ring were two different spatial worlds. In fact, he was ridiculously wrong. That could not be considered a world at all, but a warehouse. A true spatial world was a world like the heaven realm that could create things. The Sumeru world's level was much higher than ordinary Sumeru ring, but it was impossible to create things. It could only store things. There was an essential difference. He did not tell others about the heaven realm. This seemed too shocking. Before he figured it out, it could not be considered public knowledge. There were countless big worlds and small worlds in the universe. Who was the one who created these worlds? Who was the creator? Such a question arose in his heart, but he could not find the answer at all. Now, he was also a creator, so he could not help but want to explore the secrets. However, he could only slowly explore this by himself. No one else could help him at all. From the words of Tian Chanzi and the Empyrean Fairy, they had never mentioned this matter. They did not know that people could also be creators. He was not in a hurry to use the strands of life force. His mind withdrew from the heaven realm and entered the Sumeru world. Azura was still quietly staying in place, like a statue. Not far away was Wuxia. He noticed Tang Zheng's consciousness and immediately asked, "Tang Zheng, what is Tian Chanzi's decision?" Wuxia had always wanted to check whether Tian Chanzi still had the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor in his body, but Tian Chanzi did not give him the chance. "How much time has it been? What's the hurry?" Tang Zheng said lazily. People under the eaves, Wuxia had no choice but to shut his mouth resentfully. Tang Zheng patrolled around the Sumeru world. This was very different from the heaven realm. In the heaven realm, he did not need to deliberately patrol. Everything was like a movie, clearly displayed in his mind. Chapter 1406. In the corner, Xiaobai had been sleeping. But at this moment, was the one lying on the ground still Xiaobai? A sharp horn had grown out of its forehead, and a ball of fiery red hair surrounded the horn like a cluster of flames. It had shed its original hair, and its body was covered with a thick layer of new hair that looked like steel needles that were standing upside down. Its body had also grown bigger, and it looked like a small bull that was full of vigor. 4 balls of flames burned silently on its 4 hooves, emitting an inexplicable power. However, its eyes were still closed. Xiaobai had been sleeping all this time because it had absorbed a lot of dragon souls. Now, it seemed to have completely refined the dragon souls and become like this. Tang Zheng was surprised and happy. He wanted to wake it up, but he was afraid of disturbing it. In the end, he made a decision and called out softly, "Xiaobai!" Xiaobai slowly opened its eyes, and two laser-like flames shot out from its eyes. Tang Zheng jumped in fright and dodged to the side in time. Only then did he luckily escape the calamity. Wherever the flames passed, even the air would emit a burnt smell. Everything was unable to withstand it and was charred black one after another. Seeing this, Tang Zheng's heart trembled. This ability was not something that Xiaobai had before, so it meant that it was a new ability. Clearly, Xiaobai had evolved and transformed again. The transformation this time was the biggest change, and even its appearance had undergone a tremendous change. Although it could also become bigger in the past, it was not as majestic and awe-inspiring as it was now. He looked at Xiaobai with a burning gaze, as if he wanted to carefully distinguish its changes. However, he could not help but come to a disappointing conclusion. The biggest change was not visible to the naked eye at all, and it could only be seen clearly by itself. As if to prove this, Xiaobai's gaze fell on Tang Zheng, and it called out faintly, "Master." This voice was extremely clear, but it was faintly dignified. It was completely different from before. Tang Zheng understood and hurriedly asked, "Xiaobai, how do you feel?" Xiaobai nodded. "I feel great." As soon as he finished speaking, the flames on his four hooves rose into the air with a whoosh. Xiaobai immediately stepped on the flames and slowly rose into the air. Tang Zheng raised his head and looked over. Xiaobai was like a god, giving off an awe-inspiring aura. As expected of the king of the outer sky. He has such a powerful aura. The Scarlet Moon Beast's loyalty and trust in him was not in vain. However, this master made Tang Zheng very emotional. Although its strength had made a qualitative leap, it still hadn't forgotten its master. The flames under Xiaobai's hooves gradually subsided, and it landed in front of Tang Zheng. It raised its head and affectionately nudged Tang Zheng's palm with its head. Hiss! Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air. The hair was like steel needles, pricking his flesh painfully. This feeling only lasted for a second, and the needle-like hair actually softened, becoming as soft as feathers. Tang Zheng didn't feel any discomfort at all. He was shocked. Xiaobai's change was so big that even its hair had changed so much. Tang Zheng looked at him in shock and exclaimed, "Xiaobai, your transformation is too big." The corners of Xiaobai's mouth curled up as he said happily, "This is all thanks to Master. Those dragon souls are really too powerful. They actually allowed me to awaken." Awaken? Tang Zheng was stunned, not knowing what it meant. Xiaobai didn't hide it and quickly explained, "I didn't know my past and origin because I wasn't an adult, so the imprint of my ancestors in my blood hadn't awakened." Xiaobai couldn't hide the emotion in his voice. Awakening is not an easy thing. Other than one's own strength, one also needs a huge amount of energy as a source of power. The energy I accumulated bit by bit and the dragon soul's energy stimulated all of this, as if a lock was unlocked. The memories of my people rushed into my brain like a tide, testing my nerves with difficulty. Xiaobai said slowly, but every word was like thunder exploding in Tang Zheng's ears. Xiaobai had awakened and found out about his past. This was like the beginning of fate. It was no longer Xiaobai, but the king of the sky beyond sky. If Scarlet Lunar saw this scene, it would be very excited. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that its eyes would be filled with tears. Tang Zheng was also very excited. His heart was beating fast, and his emotions were fluctuating. "Xiaobai, what did you remember?" After a while, Tang Zheng finally couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked. "This isn't just remembering, it's passing down from generation to generation. Of course, it's not just memories, but also responsibility and glory." Xiaobai changed his tone and said seriously. Tang Zheng's heart thumped, and he nodded heavily. Xiaobai continued, "The Sky Beyond Sky clan has always been the ruler of the Sky Beyond Sky. This is the glory passed down from generation to generation, and it can't be tarnished. But in the end, it was tarnished, and even the glory became a joke. This is a great humiliation. Now that I'm the only one left, I want to wash away this humiliation. I want to return to the sky beyond sky and lead my people to destroy the earthlings. I want to restore the sky beyond sky to its former glory. Tang Zheng's emotions surged, and he asked, "You want to bring people back to the sky beyond sky? But the enemy has a lot of people. Even the cultivators who were expelled couldn't get any benefits. You might not succeed." Tang Zheng spoke frankly. He was not afraid of Xiao by being angry at all. This was because these were his words from the bottom of his heart. If he didn't say it, then no one else would. Xiao Bai was not angry, and said, "I want to recruit people and build a strong army." Recruit people and buy horses? Tang Zheng was shocked to hear these words from its mouth. This didn't seem like something that would come out of Xiao Bai's mouth. However, Xiao Bai had undergone earth-shaking changes, so it wasn't strange for it to say this. "Yes, I will definitely bring them back to the sky beyond sky, take back everything that originally belonged to me, and restore my clan's former glory," Xiao Bai said unceasingly. Tang Zheng naturally wouldn't sweep away its momentary excitement, and said with joy, "Then I will definitely lend you a hand." "Thank you, Master," Xiao Bai said. "When the time comes, we will lead the army back to the sky beyond sky, defeat the strong enemy, and take back everything that belongs to us." Tang Zheng waved his fist, and added. Little White excitedly scratched the ground with its claws, looking eager to give it a try. Tang Zheng knew that this was not an easy matter, and there were many difficult problems, such as returning to the sky beyond sky. The two spaces are separated, and it won't be easy to return. It's not something that can be done casually, Tang Zheng said worriedly. Xiao Bai's smile grew wider and wider and said meaningfully, "Master, I must tell you a piece of good news." "What good news?" Tang Zheng was stunned. "The sky beyond sky is not that far away. We can go there at any time." These words were earth-shattering, and Tang Zheng was stunned. The 3D floating battle game Master of the Whole People adapted by Heavenly Silkworm Potato has been released to beta testing. Search. Chapter 1407. Xiao Bai's words were earth-shattering and deeply shocked Tang Zheng. The sky beyond heaven was not unreachable and could be reached at any time? How was this possible? In Tang Zheng's impression, the sky beyond heaven was always unreachable and the only way to reach it was through the Buzhou Mountain stairway to heaven. After Xiao Bai awakened, could it be that it could break through the spatial isolation between the two worlds? This was truly inconceivable. Seeing that Tang Zheng was silent, Xiao Bai excitedly said, "Master, are you very happy?" Tang Zheng did not comment. "Xiao Bai, how do I go to the sky beyond heaven?" Xiao Bai raised its head and proudly said, "Master, you also know that the spatial isolation between the two worlds has become very weak, and after I absorbed the dragon soul, I gained a certain divine ability of the dragon clan. That is the divine ability to travel through space." Divine ability to travel through space? Tang Zheng was shocked. "Yes, the dragon clan is very talented in traveling through space, and my clan is also very talented in this area. After I absorbed the dragon's soul, the dragon soul promoted the evolution of this divine ability," Xiao Bai explained. Tang Zheng was enlightened, but his heart trembled. The dragon clan had the divine ability to travel through space. This was not difficult to understand, as it could be seen from the dragon clan's ability to travel through space. In addition, dragon slayers could also travel through space. Perhaps it was because they absorbed the dragon soul that they gained this divine ability. Tang Zheng was suspicious. Didn't I also absorb the dragon soul? Why don't I have the divine ability to travel through space? Maybe it's because my cultivation isn't deep enough. Tang Zheng had always wanted to explore the secrets of the sky beyond heaven. Since he could go to the sky beyond heaven without using the stairway to heaven, he naturally would not miss this good opportunity. He hurriedly asked, "Xiao Bai, since you can travel to the sky beyond heaven, why don't we go explore it?" Xiao Bai heard this and hesitated. Tang Zheng looked at it in surprise and asked, "What's wrong?" "Master, I can cross over to the heavens beyond heaven, but only my consciousness can cross over. My body can't cross over yet," Xiao Bai stammered. "What? Divine sense transmigration?" Tang Zheng was taken aback. He never thought that there was such a thing as divine sense transmigration. Xiao Bai said embarrassedly, "Yes, this is because my cultivation is still not enough. If my cultivation increased greatly, I would definitely be able to open the spatial door and let my body pass through." Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This was really a roller coaster ride, going up and down for a while. It was extremely exciting. Master, although there's no way to go to the heavens beyond heaven physically, wouldn't it be safer to use one's consciousness to go there? After all, it's too dangerous there. Xiaobai had an idea and spoke from another perspective. Tang Zhang was slightly startled, but he had to nod and admit that what it said made sense. Then let's go to heavens beyond now, Xiaobai said impatiently. As Tang Zhang was taken aback. Could it be that divine sense transmigration can also bring other people along? Of course, my cultivation can temporarily bring one person at a time. Xiaobai nodded and said. Tang Zheng's heart thumped. Divine sense transmigration could also allow one to experience the wonders and power of the heavens beyond heaven. How could he miss out on such a great opportunity? He nodded heavily and said excitedly, "That's good. There's no time to lose. We'll set off immediately."
Xiaobai almost cheered in joy and said, "Then I must leave Sumi Tian first."
Tang Zheng's thoughts moved. Xiaobai left Sumi Tian and appeared in front of Tang Zheng. Xiaobai's body was huge. He reached out his claws and pulled Tang Zheng's hand. Tang Zheng moved his head and let him pull, his eyes filled with anticipation. Shwa! A fiery red ray of light shot out from the horn on Whitey's forehead. The air surged and ripples spread out in all directions. A crack was torn in the air, constantly expanding in both directions. Behind the crack was pitch black and nothing could be seen. This is the spatial gate? Tang Zheng asked curiously. Yes, but right now my cultivation is too weak. I can barely maintain the spatial gate. There's no way for physical objects to pass through the spatial gate. I can only use divine sense. Xiaobai explained. But if divine sense leaves the body for too long, won't it affect the body? Usually, Tang Zheng's divine sense couldn't leave the body for too long, so he had this question. Xiaobai smiled confidently. That's in this space. Your divine sense won't be affected by this when it travels to another space. Is that so? Tang Zheng was skeptical. But since Xiaobai was so confident, then of course he would choose to believe it. Master, use your divine sense to enter the spatial gate with me, Xiaobai said. The man and the beast seemed to have turned into puppets. They didn't move, and even their eyes didn't blink. Two divine senses floated out of their bodies and flew into the spatial gate. With a schwa, the spatial gate disappeared again. The air calmed down as if nothing had happened. But the two divine senses passed through the dark spatial gate. Darkness filled his eyes. Tang Zheng was full of curiosity. However, he couldn't detect the situation around him. Suddenly, another spatial gate appeared in front of him. They disappeared into the darkness with a whoosh. His eyes suddenly opened up and became incomparably bright. A fiery red color appeared in front of him. This fiery red color was like balls of flames, swaying with the wind. It was incomparably enchanting. But in the next second, Tang Zheng saw clearly that this was actually a towering tree that covered the sky. The fiery red color he saw was the leaves. Layer upon layer, swaying with the wind, really like balls of flames. What kind of tree is this? I've never seen it before. Tang Zheng was very curious. This is called a fire tree. Don't think that these leaves are like flames. They're real flames. If you touch them, you'll be burned. Xiaobai had awakened, and a lot of information about sky beyond heaven would naturally appear in his consciousness. This was a kind of consciousness that was passively triggered, so when he saw this towering tree, he subconsciously recognized it. They were communicating through divine sense, so there was no need to speak at all. It was very convenient. Fire tree. Tang Zheng came to a realization and couldn't help but take a few more glances. This sky beyond heaven was indeed magical. It actually had such a magical tree. He could not wait to get out of the woods and see the wide world outside. Both parties' minds were connected, and they quickly flew out. Because it was divine sense, they didn't need to walk at all. They flew to the edge of the forest in an instant. Here was another scene. The towering tree was lush, but it was not a fire tree. Instead, it seemed to be in a world of ice and snow. All the trees were snow-white, and the leaves were like snowflakes. After Xiaobai's introduction, Tang Zheng knew that this was an ice tree, which was the opposite of a fire tree. The ice tree was like ice, and the leaves were real snowflakes. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew, and the leaves fell, and the snowflakes danced. It was as if it was snowing heavily. Tang Zheng's vision was broadened, and he forgot to go back. He left the forest with Xiao Bai, and the vision ahead became open. One mountain peak after another came into view. Tang Zheng was dumbfounded, and his mouth opened so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in. Why is this mountain peak floating in the air? After a long time, Tang Zheng said hesitantly. He was deeply shocked. Since he was young, he had never seen a mountain peak floating in the air like a piece of leaf. There are thousands of mountains in the Outland.
There are mountains that stand on the ground like in the human world, and there are also mountains like this floating in the air.
You'll get used to it slowly. Xiao Bai comforted. There are all kinds of strange things in this world. Today is really an eye-opener. Tang Zheng sighed. In the future, when I take back the Outland, this is equivalent to your home, Master. You can come here at any time.
You won't be surprised if you see it often.
Xiao Bai said. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. Okay, then I'll just see what other strange things are in the Outland. Both parties looked like they were sightseeing, and they went straight ahead. From afar, they saw people coming and going on the floating mountain peak. They tacitly decided to go up and find out. Although the mountain peak was floating in the air, it was not difficult for them. With a thought, they flew to the top of the mountain peak and saw a vast plaza and a magnificent building. However, black smoke was everywhere, and battle cries shook the sky. A battle was happening on the mountain peak. Tang Zheng was shocked. He did not expect to see a big battle as soon as he arrived. Both sides were not weak, but one side obviously had the upper hand. These people look like cultivators from the human world. Tang Zheng looked at a group of people. These are the remnants of the traitors from the Outland. Xiao Bai pointed at another group of people and said. Tang Zheng's attention was attracted. He had always been curious about the natives of the Outland, especially when he saw Xiao Bai and the Red Moon Beast. These so-called remnants of the traitors were the same as humans. Moreover, they were very strong. Tang Zheng saw with his own eyes that one of them tore another Yuanying realm cultivator into half. Tang Zheng was excited. He witnessed the battle in the Outland with his own eyes. However, his heart gradually turned cold. No wonder the demon race tried so hard to return to the human world. Their days were not easy. The natives of the Outland were too strong. Master, look over there. Suddenly, Xiao Bai pointed at a huge stone tablet in front of the plaza and shouted. The stone tablet was dozens of meters tall. On it, there were 3 ancient words, Kinksaman. Kinksaman. Tang Zheng was shocked. If it was any other sect in the cultivation world, he might not know. However, he was very familiar with Kinksaman. Tian Chanzi was from Kinksaman. Fang Shishir was Tian Chanzi's disciple, which meant that she was also a descendant of Kinksaman. Tian Chanzi once said that Kinksaman was a big sect in the cultivation world. After the demon race returned, he said that Kinksaman had declined and was struggling to survive. Now it seemed that it was true. Kinksaman had been attacked by the natives of the Outland. Was this not a catastrophe? He had a deep relationship with Kinksaman. He became anxious as he watched the people of Kinksaman die one by one. However, he was only a strand of consciousness and could not attack others. Therefore, he could only be anxious. He could not help Kinksaman. The people of Kinksaman fell one by one. The magnificent buildings collapsed and turned into piles of rubble. Tang Zheng was anxious, but there was nothing he could do. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.